Directing traffic, gonna go deep, has a man deep, it is caught for the touchdown, Corey Davis!
What does he do? Attacks leverage. If he's outside leverage, he doesn't want you to beat him outside. So stem towards him, hold him outside, stamp outside. Drive face, full cell vertical, get into the blind spot, and he absolutely burns it. Corner is lost. He literally has no idea where Wilson is.
Really high floor, really high ceiling. You could be talking about the best corner in the league. Sauce can do that.
This is actual film. This is actual football talk. It's a football show. We're supposed to talk football, not storylines.
And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blewett's Blitz Live. Kyle, what is up, my man?
Well, it's not as good, Joe. You know, I don't know. Maybe we're cursed. That's three Jet games attending with each other, 0-3. So not as good as I was last week, Joe, or the weeks before that.
3 stinkers too. Kind of the Ravens game pretty much sucked. The first Pats game was the game that Wilson threw 3 or 4 picks. This game 3 picks. I was saying, I was like, listen, if we lose this game, we might have to just stop going to games together. Tailgating, maybe games. I don't know, but it is what it is. We'll break it down. The Jets lost this week, so we're actually allowed to criticize the team. So we'll see how that goes. I'm a little bit under the weather. I apologize if I don't have the same enthusiasm as always. But still, the Jets are 5-3, Kyle. So we're gonna live. You know, we're talking about the playoffs. We're still, you know, kind of watching the teams like the Ravens and the Bengals out there and hoping they lose games. They're losing some big players too. And I think the Jets are still in the thick of it. We'll talk about that a little bit. But no, the game was fun. It was the first game I took it very easy on the drinking side of things. So it was nice. It was nice and relaxed. You know, the stadium was relative. Actually, I'll throw it to you. What do you think about the stadium atmosphere, you know, pre-kickoff, during the kickoff, and then post-kickoff?
I felt like it could have been a little bit better. Like we got there really early in terms of like how early we get into the stadium. I think that you'd said, I don't know, you almost never get there that early. And, you know, we were kind of counting up, okay, what capacity, percentages at full. And even right around kickoff time, there was still a decent amount of empty seats. It did eventually fill up, and I felt like the energy was pretty good and stuff. And, you know, we had the lead for basically an entire half. So I felt like it was pretty good. You know, I'm trying to compare it to a bunch of other games I go to, and I don't go to a ton. Yeah. It's mostly been not so impressive, but it definitely was not as loud as it was 2015 against the Patriots, you know, where they were almost making it into the playoffs, but obviously it shouldn't be. But yeah, dude, once the Pats started taking the lead in the second half, I mean, the crowd was basically out of it, obviously.
How much of a jackass did you feel like after watching a pick six that did not count celebrating?
Dude,
then?
Yeah, I mean, dude, we were like fucking hugging each other, man. We were going insane. And then I was like, oh, Joe, flag. And then, dude, I mean, it really sucks because the penalty's like pretty legit. Like the other hit on Mac Jones, the CJ Mosley hit on Mac Jones, total bullshit. Bullshit. He's a runner, right? I don't care if he's a quarterback, where's number 10? He's a runner, right? You can hit him high in the helmet, okay? But the JFM one, I mean, like it's a legit call. You know, you could argue maybe it's a little soft, but it's just the way the league is nowadays. And we would not want somebody hitting Zach Wilson or let's say whoever our quarterback is a little late. It didn't affect the throw at all. It didn't affect the pick six at all. And Mac Jones wouldn't have made that tackle. But yeah, it really sucked. I mean, what a huge swing. You're talking 10 points right there, man.
Yeah, I think if anything, like the rule should be changed where maybe it's like 15 yards from the spot that they picked it off or something like that. But like you said, it didn't affect the play at all. So to turn in from a Mac Jones pick six or at least a really bad interception where he just didn't see, at least I don't think he saw Michael Carter the second expanding, and okay, they get the ball back at whatever yard line it was. I don't know, the 25 or the 30 or the 20, whatever the hell it was. But yeah, that obviously hurt. But let's say hi to some people in the chat. Eagle thing was in here early. It's sad to see people already proclaim Zach Wilson to be a bust after 19 games, but he has to play better. All these mental mistakes keeps up. He needs to ride the bench till he learns to protect the ball. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Scott Wilson, start work right as the stream starts, but I'll catch a replay. Appreciate that, Scott. Hello, gentlemen. Quick synopsis. Zach Blewett with 3 picks. Let's move on and get the W. So there's a few position groups that played relatively bad this game, which we'll talk about, Kyle, as we go to the position groups. But obviously, there were some defensive blunders in this game. Obviously, some problems with Zach Wilson it goes without saying, which we're going to talk about. But this is his 3rd subpar, to say the least, week in a row, regardless of the wins. And then there was a few other ones. Safety group was pretty bad. Linebackers were pretty bad. 3rd down defense was pretty bad. So we'll get into all of that. Eagle Fang, special teams. I'm assuming I mean special team. Was awful. Blown coverages, bad punts, missed field goals, defensive roughing the passer. They will call those hits all the time since Tua got hurt. Yeah, and like you said, and people obviously are going to kind of take the Jets side because we're Jets fans, but there's no reason for him to take an extra step and a half and lunge into the quarterback. It's not like I would understand it more if he's running full speed and bumps the quarterback, but kind of wraps him up and tries to hug him to not bring him to the ground. But you could clearly see in that play, he lunges into him, and that's his second big penalty of the year. I obviously the first couple of games I kind of blew through because I was in Italy and stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, the Bengals game, he had that big 3rd down roughing the passer on Joe Burrow, where they didn't complete the pass. We shut them down, and then they go to score a touchdown. Or unless I'm mistaken, I don't know, Kyle.
Yeah, the Joe Burrow one was really bad too. I mean, it's another one where like, okay, like I understand you have momentum going into him, and it might be almost impossible to like make no contact at all. But I mean, like, you know, he sees Burrow release the ball and still decides to kind of like lunge into him and put a full on hit on him, and it's just like, come on, you got to be smarter than that. So yeah, that one was definitely really legit too, despite whatever JFM or Joe Burrow. I know JFM kind of was like, oh, it's a bullshit call type of thing. I mean, like, at least hold some accountability too.
Yeah, that annoyed me as well.
Yeah, I don't know if JFM defended himself after this one, but I know he did after the Burrow one. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I it's a lot harder to watch the player interviews after a loss like that. But to me, or at least whenever I heard, it was a little bit like snarky, like he didn't necessarily, own up to it. Which again, it's like Eagle said, and just in general, like the NFL is so soft nowadays. Even if we don't like the rules are the rules. So let's not hit the quarterback, after he releases the ball. Even though I know people want to smack the shit out of Mac Jones, but it's not what we could do. It's not what we should do. Considering how soft the rules are nowadays. And like you said, the Mosley hit on that 3rd down run where he stopped him probably like 2 inches short of the 1st down marker, but it definitely looked to be short. He's a runner at that point. He lowers his shoulder to stop him from falling forward for a 1st down. So what is Mosley supposed to do there? Just let him get a 1st down and slide? So I don't necessarily understand that one. But with that being said, and I'm going to show, which the film review will be out a little bit late this week, again, a little bit under the weather, so I didn't record today. I'm going to record tomorrow morning. But there was a few penalties they definitely missed on us or for us. But at the same time, I don't want to blame it on the refs because, listen, at the end of the day, if Zach Wilson doesn't overthrow Ty Johnson right there, guess what? JFM never has a chance to get that penalty. So there are some other people to blame as well. Twisted, what's up? Dalvin Taylor. Mims actually looked decent growth maybe. Yeah, and it looks like he's gonna get a shot to play a little bit this week too. It looks like Corey Davis is going to be out, and apparently there are some rumors out there that the Jets are going to make him a full-time part of the game plan. Now, is that just when Corey Davis is out? How much snaps does he actually get when Corey Davis is in the game? I'm not 100% sure. But he's looked decent, at least his first game he came in. He had obviously the penalty, but a really nice block against the Broncos, but still, the high variance of him where it's like, okay, really nice block, but a penalty. And the other play where I know Zach Wilson threw it behind him in the Denver game, he still dropped that ball. That ball was still very catchable. He dropped it. And in this game, we see him run that like 20-yard sit route, catch the ball, break 2 or 3 tackles, and run for 62 yards. So it's never been a talent thing with Mims. It's a little bit more of a mental thing, it seems like, just getting the playbook down, not getting penalties, not getting offensive pass interference, not getting illegal formations, not getting false starts. So if he's really, built himself back up to what we thought he could be his rookie year, then he'll be, a huge contributor for the Jets. So, the growth, hopefully, right?
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, I could say that I wasn't expecting it, and I'm somewhat impressed. After what I saw last year, I just, I wasn't on the excuse train that many other people were, but it was definitely an encouraging sign. I have to imagine that when Corey Davis is back and fully healthy, I mean, the good thing is like when Mims steps up and plays like he did, you feel like you don't have to rush Corey Davis back, which is good. And when Corey Davis is back, I have to imagine that Corey's still going to get a much larger percentage of the snaps. But it'll be nice that when Mims does come in, you feel like, okay, it's not such an absolute huge drop off between the two. So it's a nice issue to have. And I like that the Jets, kind of stayed firm and said, you know what, we're not trading you, right? They did see some kind of value in him. And obviously they're not setting that precedent that whoever can just cry their way out of here, because that's what losing franchises do. The name of the game in the NFL has always been like, okay, well, it's the team's control. I mean, I know the players are starting to get more power, but it's always been like a team owner controlled league. And, you can't play soft with the players and just give in to all their demands. So there's a reason why so many franchises are consistently good, because they know when to make moves and when not to. And hopefully the Jets are trending in that direction. I like how they handled the Mims thing. They didn't oblige his trade request. And, maybe that was further motivation to play a little bit harder. He got his chance. He stepped up. Hopefully they start handling the Moore situation well, because I think that I kept saying it all game, Joe. I mean, like he should have been playing more. I mean, Jeff Smith comes in and has like a late nice catch at the end. But he's a big drop off from Moore, and Moore did have a couple nice routes where he was really open too. To play what did he play? 5 snaps total or something like that?
I think it was 10 was the final count.
Okay, 10's the final count. I mean, that's he needs to play a lot more than that. Okay. Anyway,
Now, what is your thoughts with that? Like, because the thing is, like, okay, he got benched the last game. Obviously, now he's active, and the coaching staff excuse was, well, listen, like at the end of the day, we were playing a lot of 12 personnel, and Mims filled Corey Davis's role, so we didn't really have a spot for Elijah Moore. But at the same time, we were seeing Jeff Smith in there plenty, where Elijah Moore could have easily.
And Braxton Berrios, plenty.
So I don't buy that shit. And we were sitting up there and we were like watching, like, why is Elijah Moore not in? We're like looking at the personnel again. It'd be Jeff Smith, Braxton Berrios, and Denzel Mims. We're like, what is going on here? Or obviously Garrett Wilson. So like, do you feel like they're kind of like stuck in the middle? Like, if you're going to keep them, freaking play them, or just bench them? Like, what? Like you can't be kind of half in. And I know Nanya put up a play of him potentially not blocking on a screen, like early on in the game, and questioned if maybe they benched him because of that. But then he still got reps later in the game, so it really wouldn't make much sense. So I feel like maybe.
I mean, teams will bench a player for like a quarter or two. That does happen. If you remember Wes Welker, the 2010 divisional playoff game, because he made the comments about Rex Ryan and the foot comments or whatever, Belichick benched him for the first quarter of that game. So, I mean, teams will bench like a temporary benching. It does happen. I don't know if it was that with Elijah Moore in terms of effort on blocks and even effort on routes. I've seen that before. I don't know. It is confusing. I feel like they are somewhat in the middle. Like, okay, if you're bench, like he should have been inactive if that was what you were going to do. But did his play in the game make you want to bench him? Because it seemed like for a long period of time, like we saw him like kind of early on in the game, but then like in some middle parts of the game, like he was just completely absent from like several drives. And it's like, where's Elijah Moore been? Like, I almost wondered if he was hurt at one point.
Yeah.
And like, listen, I think that maybe I undersold Berrios as a receiver a little bit. Like, he's a little bit better than I expected him to be this year as a receiver. But Berrios is good with the ball in his hands. Like, if we're talking straight end arounds, and Elijah Moore did a decent amount of that in college.
Minus on kick returns and punt returns this game, but yes, usually.
Yeah, usually. If we're talking like a straight end around play or something like that, like think back to the Denver game, what we saw. I'll take Berrios on any given rep over Moore. But if we're talking about like straight receiver, I mean, there's no comparison. So for both of the, like, don't give me the whole 12 personnel bullshit. I mean, that satisfies an answer, and you never want to, bash a player publicly to the media, but I mean, they're being a little bit dishonest to the media. I mean, I know that's the name of the game, but they're not obviously being honest. There's other reasons why he's not playing. And it's not just because we went 12 personnel. You don't have one of your top 5 players on your team and he plays 10 total snaps. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and it might have came back to bit them, at a certain point as Elijah Moore on the field, maybe make himself open to Zach Wilson. He doesn't throw a pick. Or they get a little bit more of a lead, because the Jets really had that game. Seemingly, at least we had the momentum when it was 10-3. And I know he did get targeted once. I think he ran like a return route on the right sideline where he was open. Unfortunately, the ball was deflected at the line, but he was open, which is a little bit unfortunate. But they have to start involving him more because at the end of the day, he's one of our most talented players on offense, and especially having ABT get hurt and obviously Breece Hall get hurt and Corey Davis be hurt. He's probably what you would say our second most talented player on offense. It's obviously an argument between him and Garrett Wilson at this point.
Breece Hall too. But I don't think you're counting him because of the injury.
No, that's what I'm saying. With his injury and ABT's injury, like he's the second best player at worst on this receiver corps. I can tell you he's a lot better, like you said, than Barrios at running routes, and a lot better than Jeff Smith at running routes. So I would hope that he's going to be in these games because listen, at the end of the day, like we're making a playoff push. So I think it did hurt the team a little bit, and obviously he comes out after the game and he kind of I forget the exact quote, but he kind of insinuates like he doesn't know why he's getting the ball again. So it's not like he necessarily learned.
I think they were asking him about his chemistry with Zach Wilson, and he said like something like, "I don't know, I couldn't tell you. I don't get the ball." I think that was the quote.
Yeah, and it's understand. Like I get why he's frustrated. I'm still never going to agree with how he went about what he did. Basically, I don't want to make any noise, but here I am making noise. And I would understand. Listen, at the end of the day, he's running a lot of vertical clear out routes, and he's not necessarily the first read in the progression. And Zach Wilson right now, unfortunately, is a one read and scramble type quarterback. So he's not getting the ball. Which we'll talk about Zach Wilson and his comments in the media a little bit, not necessarily taking ownership of the loss, which he and every quarterback really should, even if it's not their fault. So that was a little bit frustrating to see from Zach Wilson, maybe showing a little bit of immaturity there. But we'll talk about him in a little bit. But with that being said, before we get into the rest of the chat, Kyle, because a lot of people, and this is a week where people are going to either kill us in the comments or the chat is going to kill everybody. People are just at each other's throats. So I guess we can kind of tend or side with a little bit more positivity, which at the end of the day, the Jets are 5-3. And we were talking about this while we were leaving the stadium, and it kind of sucks because we're in a middle ground of like, yeah, we're 5-3. We might make it to the playoffs. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what your quarterback is, you're not really going to win anything meaningful. But still, we're 5-3. We haven't been here in a while. And if you look at the schedule coming up, obviously after this week, but you never know. Anything can happen this week. Obviously, the Bills missing a ton of key players potentially. I know they're missing both their safeties. Maybe Von Miller might be out, which we'll talk about later when we go over the game. I think an ankle injury popped up on the report for him, and he didn't practice today. So might favor the Jets a little bit there. But still, we need Zach Wilson to perform. With that all being said, 5-3, we're going to assume if the Jets want to make the playoffs, right, they're going to beat the Jaguars, they're going to beat the Lions, and they're going to beat the Bears, right? Like those are three games you absolutely need to have, which I think even at this point with the struggling Jets team.
Are they all home games?
All home games, which I almost wish they were on the road because apparently we're just better on the road. Right. And then if you look past that, let's assume that both losses, people are like, oh, you're conceding losses. I'll concede the losses to Buffalo just for the sake of this argument. So you have Jags, you have Lions, you have Bears. Now, 9 wins could get you into the playoffs. 10 most likely guarantees it. Now, past those 3 games, you have Pats, Dolphins, Vikings, Seahawks. Can the Jets take at least one of those games, get the 9 wins? You'd assume so, right? Could they take 2? Who's to say they can't beat New England on the road? To me, New England on the road after the bye week is a must-win game. You cannot fuck around and have only 1 win in the division if you're trying to make the playoffs. So win that game in New England, win those 3 home games.
And you haven't won in New England since the playoff game in 2010.
Yeah, exactly. So that becomes a must-win to me. Then you're talking about those 3 home games. And then after that, Kyle, listen, I know the Seahawks are playing well. Can you beat the Seahawks? I think the Jets can. Could you beat the Vikings on the road? I think they could. Could you beat the Dolphins on the road? I think they could. Now, will they? I don't know, but we're still in a pretty good spot. And I know it's almost frustrating to hear people, oh, well, at the end of the day, if we told you 5-4 before the season started, we'd all take it. Yes, obviously, but at the end of the day, you had a chance to be 6-2 going into Buffalo, playing for the AFC's crown, at least at this point in the season, and you freaking blew it versus the Pats team, who I think the Jets clearly showed they're better than, minus maybe, obviously, the quarterback position, which we mightily struggled. So we're still in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, and going back to what you said with the Pats game too, watching this game, I almost felt like minus quarterback play, and obviously other positions struggled too. I mean, you mentioned the linebacker struggled. You mentioned the safety struggled mightily. There were definitely position groups on this team that struggled for sure. But I mean, like the Jets went out and got the lead early, and I think there were some really bad calls by the refs and stuff. But it does seem like even leading up to this game and stuff that the Jets were the better team, and they just were on that missed field goal. Eagles said it. Some special teams, big return by the Patriots. It almost felt like the Jets. I know that the Jets had like a late touchdown or whatever, but it's not like the Pats were trying to give them that touchdown. I mean, like the Jets did earn that touchdown. It's not like it was like, okay, we're just gonna play really soft coverage on this last drive, and you're just gonna eat up a bunch of time. It wasn't that. So like the score was, I mean, like it was a genuine score, but I mean, it did feel like the Jets for a decent portion of the game were the better team. You can very much beat the Patriots. I mean, like Mac Jones, he was shit, man. I mean, I don't know how he didn't recognize Michael Carter the second on that interception. I mean, like, it's not like Michael Carter was like showing blitz. I mean, like he did walk up a little bit beforehand, and then like it's not like Mac Jones assumed he was blitzing. I mean, I don't know how he didn't see him retreating back, but he didn't look good either. And like, it seems like he always fades out of his throws. I mean, we talk about some of Zach's mechanics, but Mac Jones is always like, he's always fading out of a throw. I mean, you can't be that impressed by him.
What is he doing, Kyle? Can you show me that again?
Come on, you're just trying to get me to look stupid or whatever. But he's always you have to know what I'm talking about, like where he's like fading out of a throw. But he doesn't look very good. I mean, the receivers. I almost feel like the Patriots called like a pretty good game plan. I mean, like Jacoby Myers had like a couple nice blocks in those third down conversions. But I just like a little bit more sound play. Like fucking Jordan Whitehead, wrap up Ramondre Stevenson. Damn. I mean, the Pats, regardless of whether or not they're playing in Foxborough, and I know that they'll probably get some players back for that game. That is a very beatable team. And Miami, I mean, listen, the Jets already put one on Miami. I know Tua wasn't there, and I know it will be in Miami. It shouldn't be super hot because it is in December, almost January, or is it January? So, the NFL is such a week-to-week league, and it's all about matchups and stuff, but I feel like the Jets do match up pretty well against Miami. We're still not that impressed with their offensive line. I mean, just think about how much I know Armstead went out for a decent portion of that game, or pretty much the whole game. But the Jets could take them too. But I mean, like Nania said, those 3 home games, if the Jets take care of business, win those 3 games, that there puts them at 8 games. And then they just need to win 2 of all those other games that you mentioned. And it's very possible. So, I mean, the playoffs is definitely still within question, but they need, I mean, I put out some tweet that said that, Zach needs to improve dramatically, and he needs to do it quickly because, there's that old Atlanta Falcons head coach quote, and I always forget his name. NFL stands for not for long. And he was talking to the officials when he said that, not for long when you're making fucking calls like that. But Zach Wilson, when you're making fucking throws like that, you're not going to be playing for that long. I mean, that was, I mean, Joe, are you, now that the alcohol is out of your system, if we can talk, do you want to talk about Zach Wilson right now? Or do you want to move on to something else? Because
no, it's
I was a little surprised to hear you, like, you were very firm on wanting to move on from him already. Now, I know that, of course, you'd give him to the end of the season.
Yeah.
But, like, are you, like, totally convinced, like, he's not the guy at this point? Or you still think he can make the turnaround?
Yeah, it's. I would say the 24 hours within a game, ignore everything I say because I'm a very emotional person. I'm definitely a fan when I go to games. You give them to the end of the season, but the thing is with the Jets, and this is what we talked about, Kyle, is like I think they're in a little bit different of a position, like let's say than the Bears or any. I know the Lions aren't necessarily judging Goff right now. Like they're going to get rid of him as soon as they can get rid of him, maybe in this draft coming up. But those teams that aren't necessarily ready to compete, I think they can give their quarterback an extra year. Where we were talking about after the game, like, listen, the team is very, very good. Like right now, they're near. I don't even know what the numbers say, but they're a top 5 defense, right? At this point, you could say, and we can say on offense. And somebody mentioned in the chat that with Elijah Moore, with Corey Davis, with Garrett Wilson, with Conklin, with Uzama, with Breece Hall, they're a roster that's legitimately ready to make a playoff push, if not farther. Like I've seen worse rosters win the Super Bowl than this roster. So with a capable quarterback next year, let's say a mid-level Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr level quarterback, could they win the Super Bowl? In my opinion, they could. You need to get there. You need to get to the dance, obviously, to have that chance. But with Zach Wilson, I just as of right now, I don't think he can necessarily live up to that or face that pressure that comes with the playoffs. But you give him the rest of the year. But it's almost kind of expedited the decision making on the quarterback because you need to find a guy with this roster. Because guess what? In 2-3 years, you're gonna have, or not even 2-3 years, but you have to pay Q soon. You're gonna have to pay Michael Carter II, Eccles, Huff, even lower guys, Quincy, Quan, AVT, Sauce, Brees, Garrett Wilson. All these guys are gonna need to get paid in a couple of years. So if you're gonna wait 3 years and then he's not the answer, then shit, what do you do? Because in the next year, you're going to have to pay a bunch of these guys. Do you draft a rookie quarterback and then wait for more time as all these guys soak up all that cap room that the Jets have and the flexibility with all these guys being on a young roster? Or do you have to decide after this year? And I'm not necessarily say draft a rookie quarterback. I'm done with the fucking rookie quarterbacks. I really am. So I think after this year, if he keeps showing what he's shown the last 3 games, you at the minimum have to bring in another guy. You have to bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo. And push Zach and maybe let Jimmy G start because listen, at the end of the day, we all hate the Jimmy G thing. He went to the Super Bowl with the Niners, and Jimmy G at this point has shown a lot more than Zach has shown. Jimmy G doesn't make those bad mistakes that Zach makes. Now he does make a few bad mistakes, but Zach Wilson played like the worst quarterback in the league very easily this last game, and they just can't have that shit. And I know people, oh well, the Jets are 4-1 with him. The Jets, the 3 games they won with him, or no, sorry, let's say. The 3 quarters versus the Steelers, he was bad. He had one good quarter, one very, very good quarter against the Steelers. Let me correct myself. The Dolphins game, he was very solid. I regardless of the stats, he was very solid in that game. I liked his decision making. The Packers game, he was bad. The Broncos game, he was bad. This game, he was dreadful. So if he continues to play like this at the end of the year, do you have that extra year to wait to see what he is? To me, I don't think so. I think you have to expedite the decision on him because of where your roster is at this point because it's ready to win. In 3-4 years or in 2 years when you decide on him, you might not be as ready to win. So it's a really interesting position they're in. But to me, at the end of the day, if he keeps playing the way he is, and let's be fair to our our conversation even after the game, Darnold was set up with a lot worse of a team. Darnold had a bottom tier offensive line. He's playing games with Andre Roberts and I don't even know David Nelson and all these absolute scrubs with no running game, with no defense.
Robbie Anderson was his best receiver. And
he's shown more than – and I like Wilson's better game. Like when Wilson has a good game, his decision-making is a lot more impressive than what Darnold showed. But still, he was put in a lot more of a shitty position. And Zach has a good team around him. I know the offensive line has been struggling, etc. We could talk about coaching, which people blame too much on the coaching because it's the easy cop-out answer. But he has not shown a lot this year. And the preseason, I know all the comments. Oh, preseason, blah blah blah. The offensive line, the coaching, which we can dissect it one by one. It's fine. He has sucked, So he keeps sucking. Do the Jets have an extra year to say, oh, fuck it, we have a team that's ready to win now. Let's just throw it down the drain and see if Zach is the answer. If he is the answer, awesome. If he's not the answer, what do you do after year 3? Because then the guys have to start looking, down the barrel of again paying Q and paying Michael Carter the second and Huff and Quincy and Connor McGovern's coming up. Who's our center next year? Who's our right tackle? Like they have a lot of guys to sign and figure out the cap space to be kind of fucking around with quarterback. I kind of dance around a little bit there, but go ahead and
you seem a much more level-headed. I think I pretty much agree with that assessment of things. I mean, if he needs to show like a decent amount of improvement from what he's shown this year. Like, I mean, I expected him to be way ahead of where he is by now. Like I expected to see a decent improvement from this year, although I was honestly quite disappointed with his rookie year. I expected a lot more then too. But really, I mean, like some people have been throwing around the question, where's the improvement this year? I mean, like, because has he improved in any aspect of his game?
Sure, he's a little bit better with his accuracy.
Yeah. And like, maybe his decision-making from the pocket's a little bit better, but at the same time, it's also, you can also attribute some of it to just not seeing the field properly. And then he's just being gun shy, which is not a good thing at all. But if he plays to this level to the end of the season and there's really no improvement, you absolutely have to bring in another guy and at least have some kind of quarterback competition, I would assume. You're not going to be picking high enough to the point where you're going to draft somebody who's worth anything. and you certainly don't want to trade up in the draft because that's going to cost you a whole bunch of stuff. It's not a nice situation to be in right now, but I mean, so somebody said it on Twitter to me in response to one of the tweets that I put out there. It said, Zach plays like how I play in Madden. And I thought that was kind of like a good way to describe it. Shout out to whoever said that. I feel like his name might've been Joe. Because a lot of those throws was just like, it's just like dumbass stuff that a teenager would do in Madden. It's like, yo, that doesn't work in the NFL, man. Despite the fact that you've seen Josh Allen do that on TV, despite the fact that you've seen Patrick Mahomes do that on TV. I mean, just that doesn't really happen. And you're certainly not going to throw up into triple coverage and just throw a prayer, not in the area of anybody, and expect it to happen. I mean, like those 3 interceptions are
he's bored.
about as
He doesn't want to keep throwing the ball out of bounds. He's bored, which also is like, oh,
bored,
I'm getting bored of not seeing people open, whatever it was. But basically, I'm bored of not seeing people open and having to throw the ball out of bounds. Like you're kind of not taking blame. And you're saying, oh well, nobody's open. I'm just getting bored throwing the ball away. And it's like
sometimes quarterback's going to be boring.
And
you got to take what defense gives you.
And that's what Salah said to him. And that's what Aaron Rodgers said to him. Like, you have to make all those, whatever he said, you're going to make those boring throws and make those 3, 4, 5 really nice plays a game. But that's what quarterbacking is. Like, you have to do it. And the thing is, listen, it wouldn't have to be as boring if he could hit his first read. Like the problem, and again, I have to go through the film again and I actually record it. But like, how many guys were open in the Denver game where he just didn't throw the ball? How many guys were open in this game where he didn't throw the ball? That one play to the Conklin on the seam route, if he like, he has no. His conflict.
You're talking about the end of the game of 4th down. That one
was that. I forget exactly what happened, but Conklin's up the seam and he overthrows the ball by a lot. Yeah, it was towards the end of the game, but like he panics in the pocket when it starts collapsing on him a little bit. You're rarely going to see him conflict climb. Stay with a nice even base and deliver the ball. He like sprints forward, has to reset his feet and throw it, and he's never on balance. And on that play, it was 4th and 5, and he easily could have won if he just noticed the pressure. Conflict climb, nice slot up in the pocket, could have delivered right over the head of the linebacker to Conklin, or he could have scrambled, or the multiple plays, the Ty Johnson play over the middle, the Denver game, multiple misses, the Packers game. So he's making it boring on himself. Like just take what's short.
Yeah.
So and the thing is, that,
he's not like on both the Ty Johnson checkdowns. There was that one, and there was another one where it was a really bad miss on such a short pass that there's no way it should have been an incompletion. He definitely, it's sad to say this because how many good quarterbacks are there in the league that, fade out when pressure's coming on them? Like they're all good at standing in the pocket and taking a hit when you need to. He does not want to take hits. I'm not saying like he's being scared or being a bitch or whatever, but he's so confident that, I can avoid a hit because I'm so good at throwing off platform that I can still make this throw. And I just gotta be honest, it's not working. Like step in and make the throw.
Look at the Ty Johnson throw. He ran a drag route from the slot and he was wide open and he throws it over his head because why? There's pressure and he decided to fade back and throw it sidearmed. Where he could have easily, stepped up into a hit and delivered the ball to him. And it's a 1st down and the Jets are still driving 10-3 and hopefully they get a field goal at the minimum and it's 13-3. But he decides to fade back and throw the ball over his head or throw balls that, and like, listen, like, oh, he'll improve, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, he can't throw a ball out of bounds. Like it was brutal. Or like you don't have to be a professional quarterback to realize I can't be rolling out to the right and throw a ball into triple coverage and just chuck the ball up. Like that's shit you learn in Pee Wee. Like don't do that. Just chuck the ball into the 15th row of the stands. So the thing that's discouraging is like, and again, people win the defense. It's all the Pats good pass defense, the Broncos game, and that's that result versus process thing that we talk about all the time because the process on a lot of those throws were absolutely terrible. But the thing that we were more impressed with at the end of last year, Kyle, was the mental side of it. We were impressed with him during the during the Jaguars game, even though he didn't put up a lot of stats, during the Bucs game with his mental processing. And to this year, it's went to complete shit. Like last year, he was able to press a little bit more because the team wasn't as good. But this year, at least in the Packers and the Broncos game, he's trying not to lose games, and he's needing to see guys wide open for multiple seconds, and that's when he's throwing the ball to them. And it's just not good enough. And it's either that or trying to make the big play. And again, he just has to play boring. So he is very much struggling. And I think this stat is from Zach. Is it Rosenblatt or Rosen? It's Rosenblatt, right, from the Athletic.
Mm-hmm.
Zach Wilson in the 4th quarter against the Steelers was 10 for 12, 83.3 completion percentage, 128 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 138.9 rating. Zach Wilson, 19 other quarters, 52.3 completion percentage, 773 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 picks, 59 rating. He's almost missing half the throws. And again, blame LaFleur all you want, and I will blame LaFleur for 2 things. For not getting him in rhythm early enough. I want to see more RPOs, more short throws in the beginning of the games. I get that, and I completely agree with that. I think there are at times when they're facing pressure and pressure teams, they're running too many deep developing route concepts. That's 2. 3, they're going empty and throwing way too much on third and short. It's annoying to not even have a threat in the backfield. You're having a quarterback who's struggling making quick decisions, and you're putting him in situations on third and short where he has to make quick decisions. So there are the 3 points where I will blame LaFleur. With that being said, if Zach Wilson just hit the open guy, his stats would look a lot better, and the Jets would be winning a lot more games. The Patriots game easily could have won. The Broncos game, he missed, 3, 4, 5, 6 plays easily. The Packers game, there was at least 3 or 4 plays he completely missed, whether it be based on his arm or his mental processing. So Zach Wilson, regardless of the wins, 4-1 with him, is struggling mightily, minus a game and a quarter. 5 quarters of the season, he's played pretty well to me. So with that being said, Kyle, this continues to happen throughout the year. I know that obviously we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but let's just say, based on our film study, based on what we watch, he continues to struggle. What do you do? Do you look for a Jimmy G and let them compete? Because again, Jimmy G, people are going to shit on him, but he's at least where we put him, 16 to 20th best quarterback in the NFL range-ish, somewhere around there. Or I know Carr's been playing like shit, but do you see if Carr gets released or try to trade for a Carr? Like, what do you do? Because you can't do nothing if you continue to play the way he does, in my opinion. You're wasting all the young talent on your roster that's going to have to get paid soon. And some of them are going to have to leave. It just is what it is. Quincy is outplaying his contract. Quan, even though they struggled last game, is outplaying his contract. Sauce is going to get a massive deal. Quinn Williams is going to get a massive deal. ABT is going to get a massive deal. So you're looking at big deals coming up. So you need to capitalize now. All these picks are going to have to get paid. That's the unfortunate part of having all these picks, but they have to strike within I'm not saying it's not a long-term thing, all this stuff, but you think realistically to get what we all want, that Super Bowl, we have to really try the next 3-4 years to get there. And I don't know if waiting another 2 or a season and a half to address the quarterback position is the answer if Zach continues to show what he is. Because if he continues to show this the rest of the year, what are the realistic chances of him bouncing back in year 3? I don't see it if he continues to play the way he does, because he has regressed since the end of his rookie year. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it's a sad truth. He has regressed since the end of his rookie year. I don't want to give up too early. I feel like a guy should get at least 2 solid years. We certainly did that for Darnold and whatever, but even though even on some of his good throws in this game, he was still like a tick late with some of them, as you said before. Like, he kind of needs to see it get open. Like, anticipation was a huge struggle in this game. I mean, like, even on some of his misses, if he threw with more anticipation, he would have had completions on some plays. I had written down some plays. But even on some of them, the ones that he did complete, if he's thrown it a little bit earlier, the coverage won't be as tight. He's going to make it easier for his receiver and or tight end. But I guess the only really thing, because I was so disgusted, like I think Nanny had like a tweet the day of the game that said something like, football is such a complex game. There's like 20, he didn't say all this, but there's like 22 players on the field. So many things can happen, coaching situations and all this kind of stuff, but it's rarely on one person. But I can firmly say that loss was on the quarterback. And he's right. And I think everyone and their mother who's honest with themselves would say that loss was on Zach Wilson. It really was. You cannot turn the ball over to a Bill Belichick coach team 3 times when those interceptions should not have been interceptions and expect to win. You just can't.
Every single one of them was brutal. The only one I can not necessarily, sorry for interrupting you. The only one I can excuse because it was not necessarily a bad decision. Well, it was a bad decision based on how he threw the ball.
The throwaway to McCourty.
No, the first one. The first one, he sees Ty Johnson open. Now, should he fade away the way he fades away? Absolutely not. But he saw a guy open, he overthrew it. That's just a mechanical thing. The throwaway, you have to put it at least another 5 yards out of bounds. And the chuck up was just as brutal.
That was the chuck up was the worst one. There was still 10 minutes, I think, of game time left in the game. Like, I understand you're pressing, you're down by multiple scores. But there's no way you can make that throw in that situation. Like, if there's 2 minutes left on the clock, maybe. I mean, it's still a dumbass move, but yeah, you cannot do that. But I will say that the one encouraging thing to me was he did throw some lasers in this game. I mean, he threw some balls that had some heat on them, man. Like, it's like, okay, this is why they took him second overall. I mean, there were some throws that was just like, Conklin's touchdown, the one pass to Uzama. There was a couple throws late in the game.
The one to Mims was nice too. Nice anticipation.
Yeah. Even though he missed on because we were talking about him being bad in the pocket, like that throw to Conklin at the end of the game on fourth down, that was all arm, and he still got it up there. Just throwing it was straight arm. He had it with that much speed and trajectory, and it still overthrew him. So there's no denying he's got some serious talent. Like the way he moves and can evade stuff. Like if he can ever get together the mental side of things and knowing and just like really put it all together. I don't want to give up yet. Like I'm really excited to see 9 more games, but God, he cannot play like that. Anyway, so we got a couple super chats.
So what is the answer to the question? He continues to play the way he has the last 3 games. Even the Jets are winning. Even the Jets are listen. At the end of the day, this is assuming he doesn't play dreadful. Like let's say the Green Bay or the Denver game where he's not turning the ball over. Even though the Denver game he should have had a turnover, there wasn't a pass interference or whatever that call was. But let's say he's playing like those level games, Packers, Denver, where it's not necessarily brutal turnovers. What do you do at the end of the year, Kyle? Is it Jimmy G? Is it Carr? Like what is the more people talk about Lamar Jackson? 1, I don't think it's going to happen, and 2, you have to completely change pretty much your entire team and your offense to fit Lamar Jackson. So I just don't see that happening. So I don't know if you already answered this or you kind of insinuated to your answer, but you said you had to bring somebody else, right?
Listen, I mean. You cannot be impressed with what he did against the Packers. You can't be impressed with, like the Dolphins game, like he didn't really have to do much if we're being honest. What he did against the Broncos. All right, let's talk Packers Broncos. 2 wins. That was bad quarterback play in both games. I don't care. Especially the Broncos game. I mean,
thank God Brees got that 60-yard touchdown, whatever it was, because that game would have been really, really freaking ugly, and it was.
Yeah, you'd have to bring in somebody. There's no way you could say, okay, we're 100% sold. He's the guy for our future. I mean, like when there was even like some, like I remember the media saying, oh, well, after like Joe Flacco got the Cleveland win, like some of them were trying to stir up the quarterback controversy thing. Cause of course they got to get clicks and stuff. It's understandable. You understand they got a job to do. But Saleh was just kind of like, no, Zach is definitely our future. Like it was no question in his mind. There's no way that if he keeps playing at that level that you could go into the offseason saying, yeah, he's our guy for the future. There's no way. Like, at that point, Saleh would be doing an injustice to this entire football team. Mm-hmm. So he needs to get better quick, and he needs to get better by a lot. In these 9 games, the NFL is a week-to-week league. You can look like shit one week against this team, and then you can look good the next week. We're going to see what he's made of. All right. We're going to see what this team's made of. Yeah. I'm not ready to give up yet. Like I like the talent. He was a fun evaluation. Even all the disgusting play in this game, there were still a couple moments in this game. You're like, all right, man, like that was a throw. I'll take that. All right. So we'll see.
He just needs to play football. He needs to start trusting his eyes because and I think somebody mentioned that recently, like his eyes are getting to the right spot. He's just not pulling the trigger. So at least he's going through his progressions, at least at times. But like you said, like I'm with you. Like I'm not getting up on him yet. You have 9 games. Prove to me in 9 games or whatever, 10 games, whatever it is. Is it 9? We're 5-3.
It's 9 games.
Prove to me you deserve another year because right now the way he's been playing, he hasn't shown that he's going to be the quarterback of the future. But again, it's year 2 again, and I think I'll reiterate the Bears, the Lions, on one of those teams. He probably gets that 3rd year no matter what. With this Jets team, how ready they are to compete, I completely agree with you. It'd be a disservice to the rest of the roster, the Sauces, the Brees, the ABTs of the team to say, well. Let's see if you can figure it out the 3rd year. And you have a team that's ready to compete for what I would think a Super Bowl next year. Like literally next year, they fill up safety, linebacker. Maybe they get another offensive lineman. That's pretty much all they need. And you're ready. Like they are ready. They could be there. With this defense, how good it is and how good these skill players are. They're right there. That's legitimate. Like we could stack up every other team in the NFL really, and tell me which one is bar none easily better than the Jets minus okay, we talk about like the Chiefs and the Bills and maybe some other teams, but they're in that top 10 easily, in my opinion. So they plug a couple holes. Why can't they win next year? That's my opinion. So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep into the chat. I'm sure people are.
Yeah, we did get a couple super chats.
Okay, let me go down 605. I'll go back to 605. I saw we got like 2 or 3 of them. So let me find those real quick. wherever they may be. People might be roasting us, I'm sure. Domsey, appreciate the $10 super chat. Could lack of more targets fall on him playing lackadaisically? In Pitt, he gave up on his route. Zach Wilson picked near the end zone. Yes, correct. And ran the wrong route later in the game that almost resulted in another interception. I don't remember the other wrong route in the game that almost resulted in another interception.
I don't either.
In the Steelers game, I did shotgun those reviews, so I don't necessarily remember. You could be right, but nonetheless, I think the coaching staff notices that. Kyle noticed it plenty of times where he mentioned him, not necessarily blocking or not necessarily running routes the hardest. So you have that combination.
You even saw a little bit of it in his college tape too.
Yeah, and you have that combo with the fact that he is clearly upset with his usage and role, and the Jets are all about team guys. I think it's another variable in the problem with Elijah Moore right now, undoubtedly. Correct?
Yeah.
So, sorry if that was too short of an answer, but yeah, I think that's completely valid. Domsey, they see that stuff. They notice, that pick against the Steelers. Like, there's no way that was just, run a curl or a comeback, wherever it was, right into what's going to be an over route that should be open, and obviously resulted in a pick. And the ball was overthrown anyway, so it might have been, PD or incomplete ball, but nonetheless. RJ MacPot.
If I can comment a little bit more on the Moore thing for a moment,
yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, obviously any coaching staff, they want to put players out there that they know that they can rely on. But part of me also wonders if the usage of how they played him in the game is them trying to motivate him. Like, I mean, I understand Denver. Okay, like, listen, get in the right mindset. We can't have you out there this week. Playing him, such a small percentage of the snaps this past week is any part of it saying, hey, listen, man, we're good, but you need to prove it to us. Especially with the trade deadline approaching, and now the reality set in. Okay, there's no way I'm going anywhere next week. It's like I got to earn my spot. It could be, like as a teacher, sometimes like when like a student has potential, you'll like maybe push them in a certain way. Like, hey, listen, you'll make them earn the grade or whatever. You'll make them earn. Like, I wonder if part of it is this is not the right term to say, mind games that the Jets coaching staff is playing, where they're making him want to earn his spot, like, earn your playing time.
Yeah.
I do wonder if there's a little bit of that going on there. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I could see it. At the end of the day, I didn't necessarily love the way they handled it, at least in this game, because we needed him, but maybe they noticed something on tape that we didn't with him quitting on routes and stuff like that. But RJ MacPot 720, are we really ready to win now because our safeties and part of our O-line is still sus? Yes, but if you look at all the other teams in the league, they all have holes, and there are holes. Like linebacker is CJ Mosley in coverage has been a hole. Safeties are a hole. But at the end of the day, and I know some of this is based on the fact the Jets haven't played the best quarterbacks, but their defense has been stout. Like, not this game, they definitely struggled on third down and tackling. But you're always going to have a slight weakness. But so does every other team who's ready to. Maybe other than the Bills. The Bills O-line isn't stacked. You look at the Chiefs, some of their defensive positions aren't stacked. The Rams are extremely thin minus their top tier talent that they have. Look at the Bucks. Like, there's plenty of teams out there who have holes. The Ravens with their receivers is a hole. So I think the Jets are ready to win now, and especially and this year, I think it's ready for a playoff push. Next year, RJ MacPot, let's say they add a right tackle, or as a tackle in general, you add a safety, and you add let's just say a safety and an offensive lineman, and your weakest position group is CJ Mosley, Quincy, and Quan. Like, that's a roster with a good quarterback. You could definitely make a push to the Super Bowl. Like, look at the Bengals. From I know Joe Burrow, but their offensive line was trash. They had Eli Apple playing corner for a deep run. The Jets have a top-tier defensive line, a top-tier corner trio, not duo, trio, and with the offensive line next year, assuming ABT comes back for the beginning of the season and McGovern gets signed, like, you have a pretty solid offensive line next year. And that's hopefully with the fact that Laken Tomlinson starts to get his head out of his ass, which he did a little bit this week, but still a few mistakes, and maybe Dwayne Brown gets offseason surgery that kind of corrects that shoulder. You have Becton coming back. Like,
Boy.
Yeah, I think that this team is ready to compete now for the playoffs, and next year, why can't they make the Super Bowl? That's legitimately my opinion. That's with assuming good quarterback play.
I saw somebody, like how people will make those like tier ranking chart things. I don't remember who it was. I thought it was kind of funny, and I thought that it made a lot of sense. I don't totally agree with it, but it was like
Mhm.
he put it into 3 tiers, and the top tier was like will beat most teams, and it was the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Bills. And then there was a middle tier, and it was like almost every other team in the NFL can beat any team, but can lose to any team. And then there was like a bottom tier, which is like will lose to most teams, and it was like the Lions, the Texans, and maybe one other team. Uh,
Right.
and even though, like, I probably would divide it into more tiers than that if I was making one of those things, but I thought it was just funny. Like, and there is a lot of truth in that, and saying that there is so much parity in the league right now, and there's very few teams that you could say are like really, really, really good. And if you just look at the New York Giants, like both of their Super Bowl runs, man, like they were not great teams either of those years. Like they were 10-6, if I remember correctly, in 2007, and they were freaking 9-7 in 2011 when they made the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. They got
The
hot at
Jets
the right
in
time.
2009, 2010 were what, 9-7 both years, or 10-6 the one year, and they made this to the conference championship both years. If they had decent quarterback play, they could have been in the Super Bowl. It can
Yeah.
happen. You just got to get there.
And so like the Jets definitely have some guys who have like Quinn is a superstar right now. Sauce is, if you're not calling him a superstar yet, like, dude, he's definitely right on the cusp of being a superstar. I don't see how you can't
Sure.
call him one personally. So like
Yeah.
they're finally getting like elite, like top level talent. But I think the biggest thing is they now have depth. Like you just traded Jacob Martin, right? And why'd you trade him? Because you got other guys who are playing just as well, but they don't have the contract that he has, and you could get a draft pick from it. So it just made sense to do it. So like they have
Yeah.
more depth than they had in previous years, which you need depth, especially when this is a violent game, man. Player injuries happen all the time. So yeah, the Jets could absolutely make a run, but obviously figuring out the quarterback thing is the most important thing.
Another super chat from the NY Bully. Appreciate that. What's up, Joe and Kyle? Not to stray from the topic, but how is our cap situation moving forward? Will we be able to afford a big splash signing next season? They're not going to be able to. Now, I think they have like $5 million-ish right now. They might have cleared a little bit more with the Martin trade, which is going to be like, I think it's.
I think they actually took a little bit of a hit trading him.
Okay, but they cleared some in the future. I know next year they're actually taking a hit as well, but they cleared a little bit. So to be short, no, they don't. They're going to have to next year pretty much re-sign their own guys. Like you got to re-sign either McGovern or a center. You got to re-sign Q. You got to. I don't know. Quincy should be up relatively soon. Like you have to re-sign Quincy. What happens to Quan? Quan's on a 1-year contract. You have to re-sign Quan. What happens to? And listen, do I necessarily want to re-sign him for $7.5 million, $7.5 million, $8 million for what he is? Which, by the way, everybody in the offseason was saying he's a steal of a signing. I was kind of like, oh, watch out. With Jordan Whitehead, did they re-sign him? So they're pretty much gonna have to sign their own guys, and that's it, and fill in the roster a little bit here and there. But they're gonna have to move some cap around to sign a guy, or rely heavily on the top of the draft. Rounds 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's a safety, tackle, and a linebacker in those first 3 rounds because they don't really have a lot of money.
Yeah, they don't. But I mean, the goal is to always re-sign your own guys. I mean, like the good teams, when they have like really good top end players, those players don't walk. You keep them happy here because they're winning, and they don't want to take a risk in like playing another season or whatever where they could get hurt, so they're willing to stay and make a deal with you. So it's nice that like it's a good situation to be in when we're talking like, okay, if we want to stay competitive, we got to re-sign some of our own guys. Now maybe the Jets don't re-sign Michael Carter in 3 years or so. Maybe they don't even re-sign Breece Hall in like 3 to 4 years or whatever, because the running backs, and they don't last long. And it's kind of, when can we think of like which running back who got like a big contract, like Chris Johnson, Mr. 2,000 rushing yards or whatever? Did he ever live up to the hype after he got his big old contract? Right? Did Todd Gurley, did I'm trying to think. I know he's had some really good years with McVay, and I know that when he was initially drafted, he was with good old Jeff Fisher. Fisher, Mr. 7 and 9.
Henry got a contract though, right? And he's balling out. But other than that,
okay, yeah. So, but it's pretty rare. Like what I'm saying is, like usually running backs on that second big contract, they don't usually live up to the hype. So, I mean, like maybe they don't have to resign everybody, but like, especially like, Breece, like, he was borderline superstar too. I mean, like legit, like I was texting one of my buddies who like didn't even hear about him. I was like, oh yeah, you should probably draft Breece Hall if you can get him in like the proper round. But I was like, yeah, like he's playing like a top 10 running back. There's no way you could say he wasn't.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
the point is it's a good situation to be in when you're talking about retaining your own guys to stay competitive.
Yeah, I think something in the chat, which is farther down, so there's like 30 million coming off the cap, but a lot of that 30 million gets eaten up very, very quickly when you have to re-sign Q. So there's not a lot of money left.
Yeah,
There's
and
just
dude,
not.
and Quinnen, he's going to break the bank, man. Like he's going to break the bank. And when you were talking about re-signing our own guys, I thought because I saw this report, I think it was Albert Breer who said that Sean McVay, he's going to retire when the core of Stafford, Ramsey, Aaron Donald, and one other player, Cooper Kupp, retire. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. And Aaron Donald has even floated with the idea of retirement and like in the next couple of years. So we could talk about Quinnen Williams as being the best interior defensive lineman in a couple of years with the highest contract. And Sauce Gardner, you're talking 4th overall pick. He's obviously outplayed Stingley, and some of these older corners are going to retire. He's probably going to get the top corner contract in a couple of years. Considering
What are you expecting
knock on wood, he's healthy.
From Quinnen Williams like that? And I know you don't want to do like guarantees and stuff right now, but Bradley Chubb just got $24 million a year, whatever it is from the Dolphins.
He's obviously going to break that. He's obviously going to break that.
You're looking at I think Stephen Engels just looked in. Yeah, he said it's perfect. 5 years, $125 million. That's probably what you're looking at. You're looking at $25 million for Q right now, and that 30 just became 5.
I wouldn't be, dude. He was the 3rd overall pick. I wouldn't be shocked if he was pushing for around 30 million a year.
Let's just be generous and say 25, Kyle. Then you still have who's your center, who's your right tackle, who were your starting safeties because both of them are gone after this year. Who is your other linebackers because Quan and Quincy might be gone. So you're looking at a lot of roster juggling and having to figure out the cap, and you still don't have quarterback figured out. So they might have to push some dead cap down or future, like not what's the terminology, like future contracts, whatever, like dead money down the road to make that playoff push. Like, so can you have all these big contracts and say, here, Zach Wilson, the way he's been playing, he has 9 games to prove that he deserves another year. At least another year of being the guy. At the minimum, you're bringing in Garoppolo, in my opinion, depending on what the Niners do. But we'll talk about that at a future date. Hopefully, he balls out. We don't have to worry about it, and we have our quarterback. But it kind of falls into this question as well. Andrew, $5 super chat, which we appreciate. The super chats, guys. The views went down because people are just miserable right now, but the super chats are killing it, so we appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
If Zach's holding back a playoff run, do you still give him the entire season? Can he still be a star, or ceiling is average at this point? What do you think, Kyle?
I don't think he's going to have. It's hard for me to see him having like several more games where he has like multiple really egregious interceptions like that. I mean, like those are like, when I say like those are like the worst types of interceptions you can have. I mean, like they are. I mean, like sometimes it's like a tight window throw and you just think you can make it and the defender just makes a great play. And it's almost like, oh shit, like, okay, like maybe you shouldn't have pulled the trigger there, but I understand why you did. I mean, Saleh said they're giving him till the end of the season. I don't see Mike White as being an upgrade. We saw several games of Joe Flacco. No. He was not an upgrade. It's like, so where are you turning to? It's like, are you really turning there? Like, is that where you're going? Are they going to be an upgrade?
With Flacco, sorry. With him and Flacco, it's almost like weird. Like you lose that Steelers game if Flacco's in because he yes. needs to avoid some of that pressure. This Patriots game, you probably win with Flacco. It's like it's almost interesting, but Zach Wilson has that. He has the upside of being a legitimate quarterback for the future where Flacco doesn't, so you give it to him over Flacco.
Exactly. So, I don't know. I think when Saleh said Zach's our starter to the end of this year, I think he really meant that, and that is the right thing to do. So it's not like you don't have a significant upgrade if you go with one of the other two, even if Zach's playing the way he did last week. So
can he still be a star, or is his ceiling average at this point?
He can still be a star. I mean, he could be, but dude, if I had to put a percentage on it right now, it wouldn't be that high.
Yeah.
Like Josh Allen. I mean, like, why do we always make this comparison? But
Peyton Manning. Yeah, it's
just because we know him well. He's in the division. We scouted him a lot coming out. I mean, nobody would say that Josh. I mean, like, even Bills fans, like some of my buddies from the Rock Pile Report podcast who, I've been on their show many times and they came on my show many times. They hated when they took Josh Allen. My brother, who's a big Bills fan, he hated
Bills fans
when they took Josh
99%
Allen.
of them did.
Like they were pissed. Oh man, we fucking traded up to get Josh fucking Allen, man. And if you remember, the Bills moved up from like 20 to like 7. They made like several trades with players to move up several different times in order to draft him. It's like we did it for this guy. Like his college tape wasn't good. Like you want to talk about being a slow processor? Josh Allen was a very slow processor, right? And then he also played a bunch of hero ball, kind of like Zach Wilson. Like I'm not saying their skill sets are like really identical, and obviously the size frame, the body type is way different. But there are some similarities in like the hero ball, which you're seeing from Zach Wilson. Like think about the Daniel Jeremiah tweet where Daniel Jeremiah said something like, Zach Wilson's like 80% trying to create stuff on his own and 20% just taking what the defense gives him. I'm paraphrasing. He needs to flip that percentage if he wants to be successful. And I think there's a lot of truth to that tweet. But anyway, but Josh made a significant leap, each year. I think Josh improved a lot from his rookie year to his second year. Whereas I have not seen that jump yet from Zach Wilson. So like it's hard. Like I never, even after year 2 of Josh Allen, I was like, okay, I would have put it at a pretty small percentage that he was going to become a star. But I'd say that you'd have to even put it at an even smaller percentage that Zach Wilson could potentially be a star. I would say probably it can't really be higher than like it's somewhere in the 20% right now that you think that he could become a star. It's sad to say that, but
no, I agree. It's unfortunate. He's dropped a lot the last couple of weeks for me. I thought much more of him after that Dolphins game. But he's really showed regression the last couple of weeks. And the same thing like with Josh Allen, everybody makes that comparison. But if we compare the rosters to like Zach is working with more talent than Josh Allen was working with in his second year. He didn't get
until year 3.
Yeah, year 3. And he still had like what 27 touchdowns. He's definitely putting up more numbers than Zach is putting up. And again, and it's all different. Again, obviously we look at the film. And Zach is missing open guys. He is making bad reads. He is panicking in the pocket. Like there is plenty of problems right now. But another $10 super chat from Alex. Would you be in on Minshew if Zach doesn't play well the second half? He played way better than Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville with far less talent. Also, how much do you think Moore's frustration has to do with Zach's poor play? Would I be in on Minshew? Absolutely not. As a backup,
Joe does not like watch Joe's film review of Keelan Cole, and you will see how much Joe despises Gardner Minshew.
No, I'm not in on Gardner Minshew.
Listen, you want to talk about a short guy who doesn't have a great arm, and who we were talking about how Zach Wilson is not stepping into throws, and like sometimes you just need to take the hit, man. Gardner Minshew was fading out of a ton of throws there.
He's terrified of getting hit.
Like he definitely processes things quicker than Zach. There's no doubt about that. But he's also a decent amount older than Zach too. Like that's one thing that's one like silver lining that you can kind of lean your head on. Is like, take someone like Mike White, like these or Strevler, like these guys are several years older than Zach. They've been playing quarterback a lot longer too. So sometimes it just takes like you're young. It just like even Kirk Cousins, like when he started starting for the Redskins, like he was like, he was like, I don't know, but he was like a little bit on the older side. So sometimes it just takes experience. So you don't want to give up too early. I mean, like I keep seeing people talk about fucking Geno Smith in the chat, right? I mean, Geno Smith, we haven't seen him play good quarterback play until he got into his 30s. Now, granted, there's no way you can wait for Zach Wilson to get that old before.
Are we bringing Geno Smith back next year? Can you imagine Geno Smith starting Jets quarterback in 2023?
Yeah, but the thing is, Minshew is a lot less talented, and you cannot bank on him being your starter.
No, as a backup,
backup, sure.
Yeah, let's say Mike White leaves and Flacco leaves and Zach Wilson's the answer. You want him as a backup, okay. But if that's the answer to the problem, I'll be very, very frustrated. And how much do you think Moore's frustration has to do with Zach Wilson's poor play? I'm sure it's a very big part of it. Zach Wilson is not performing right now. He's not getting through his first read. Moore is not always or not even close to being the first read all the time. So he's not getting targeted. And in my opinion, he's getting used a little bit too much vertically. So it's definitely a pretty big portion of it, I would say. But I'm going to run through the rest of the chat. Anything that really pops out, I'm going to. Oh, this is another kind of anything that sticks out. I'm like an hour behind. PFF saying Sauce giving up the TV was obvious OPI and it was Joyner's fault for not having awareness until the linebacker was.
I have a question for you, Joe, on that. So I know that I'm very familiar that the rule is within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage, it's not considered pass interference. Anything beyond that is. But if the block initiates within 1 yard and you drive your man back, is it still OPI?
I don't know. That's a good question. I would think so, because you're still blocking down the field, right? Like you're still blocking.
That's what I thought too. But then I was thinking like, well, if you put a good block on the person and you drove him back, I mean, maybe you kind of earned it because like it initiated within the line. I honestly don't know.
Yeah,
I know that if he initiated the block beyond 1 yard, it'd clearly be OPI.
And that was interesting, because if you watch that exchange, because the play before, the Pats pretty much did the same exact thing, and Sauce and whoever that linebacker or safety were, they like have that banjo call where they switch it, but literally the very next play, they don't switch it. So I don't know if it was because it happened and they didn't line up pre-snap, so they didn't have a chance to call banjo. So it was Joyner's fault, which I think it was, or if it was because on the first play, the outside receiver immediately runs inside, where the second play he runs vertically. So do they only have a banjo call if he runs immediately inside? So it's kind of interesting to watch how their defense works. But the fact that PFF put it on Sauce, and then Sauce was like, "Yo, it wasn't on me," and then they changed, it just shows like why. Again, still week after week, why do we care about that?
And it's funny if they are willing to change their grades, because, and I know that they don't know the team's calls and whatever, but like that they'll change it just because a player says. I mean, the player could be lying, right? Like a player could be like, "Hey, I don't like the grade you gave me, and that was not my responsibility. Change it." And like PFF's just going to take their word for it. Like it just kind of shows you really how flawed their system is.
Somebody says Pennington can get his team 12 wins. How many wins do you think we get with Pennington?
Yeah, prime Pennington, especially before his arm was cooked, which I know he never had a great arm. Yeah,
at least 10 or
definitely,
11.
definitely, yeah.
You're definitely winning that Pats game. Like the video, I appreciate that. What's good, Art? We saw you week one, another depressing week. I see all you guys when I'm depressed. Let's see. After the Pats, we had them beat. Zach gave it away. Hope he rebounds. Yeah, listen, compete with the Bills this week. Go into Foxborough, beat the Pats with actually Zach Wilson throwing some heaters. Then we're starting to forgive him, but he has a lot to prove in the next 9 weeks. So, do you think Zach not something to the pocket is more fear of getting hit or bad fundamentals footwork? I think he's a relatively like tough player. I think it's more just panic than anything.
He's definitely tough. Like he'll like, all right, let's say they did an end around in this game. Like he'll fucking throw his shoulder down. It's not like he's like sometimes like you want him, or Zach slide, and he'll like throw his shoulder into somebody. So I mean, like he's not like a bitch or anything like that, but it's like he does panic, like, oh shit, like, I don't want to get sacked. Like, he might not have his confidence to like, he's obviously not tall. He's not short either, but like, oh, if I got pressure in my face, maybe I can't see as well. My vision's obstructed. Let me get outside the pocket so I could see better. It could be a ton of things. It's hard to know unless you kind of have a conversation with him.
Yeah, and like it's not like his offensive line has been stellar since he's been here, but trust me, there are plenty of plays where he has time in the pocket. He has an avenue to step up in the pocket, and he doesn't. So, like he has the yips a little bit, which is unfortunate. He has to get over that because we've seen that doom a lot of quarterbacks before. We had another question. Something Ron's talking about the Jets. I don't know what he's saying. Dende doesn't want Derek Carr, doesn't want Kirk Cousins, doesn't want Jimmy G. So, Dende, who are we getting? Let's say Zach doesn't work out. Who is it? Because Zach right now is not winning in January. That is for sure. So I do not approve of the knee-jerk decision of the team. The team is win now. We must turn the quarterback carousel back on. But I think at a certain point, Swolsey, if Zach is as bad as he's been recently, I think there's very little shot he turns it around in year 3. So you're taking a very low percentage shot that Zach's going to turn it around when I don't think he can. Like at a certain point, you're at the pass of no return, or at the point of no return. And if he keeps playing the way he's been playing, you're at that point. Like there's very little chance to me if he continues to play and doesn't get his shit together that he's going to work out in the next year. And again, you have a team that's ready to win now, so it's not like just give the year away. No, Stephen Engel, yo Dix, what's up? I know you mentioned the Devils a little bit. Devils are 7-3 now. Devils are not just winning; they are shredding teams right now, which is very nice to see. Because I'm starting to completely get out on basketball now. You have like the Elijah Moore stuff. Kyrie's still a psychopath, and even more of a psychopath now. Dude, just completely off his rocker. And basketball sucks. It really does. I remember like being at a game and like watching Brooke Lopez like not jump for a rebound. Where I was like in my teenage years, I'm like, so they don't try in the regular season. Yeah, pretty much. They just don't. Let's see. Okay, keep going through. He loses bodily function under pressure, zero mechanics, hop, skips, jumps, only arm throws. Yeah, no, it's and listen, and I'm not going to say who, but there are people saying that he didn't have any mechanical flaws at BYU. That's not true. He had mechanical flaws at BYU, Kyle. I'm sure you remember the 8 hours of film review I put out, and you did all your own film review. Zach had problems at BYU with his mechanics. It's just showing up more now. So
it is true. Somebody said, it might have been one of your friends, Joe, who we tailgated with, who said that, you know, he was under a lot less pressure at BYU, which makes sense. A lot of college quarterbacks don't deal with as much pressure. I mean, the BYU team is pretty good. Right. They had a couple linemen who at least had brief stints in the NFL, and they were going against inferior competition. So he didn't have to deal with as much pressure. So, you know, mechanics break down when you're under pressure. So that's obviously part of it. But part of it too is like he is uber confident in his athletic ability, throwing from different arm angles and stuff like, I mean, just hear himself talk about himself, like, you know, coming out of college, and you want your quarterback to be confident, right? One of the things he would always highlight is like, yeah, how I can, like, you know, throw at different arm angles and stuff and throw off platform. Like he would kind of, you know, like he knows he's talented with doing that stuff. So he tries to rely on doing it too much. And the thing is like, you only have to do that stuff in absolute dire situations. Like you can't try to do that stuff all the time. Like it's not biomechanically speaking, like you want to throw with proper mechanics, and, you know, sometimes shit breaks down and then you use it, but like sometimes he uses it when he doesn't have to, and that's where you're seeing some of these inaccurate throws, which is frustrating.
what do you have to say to this comment, Kyle? I love how the narrative went from this year is only about Zach's improvement to it's time to replace him after a good start to the year against mediocre teams. Let's keep it stacked. I don't know what keep it stacked means, or I guess it's like let's keep it honest or 100 or whatever. But what is your thoughts on that comment?
Well, you and I obviously said that we never said that it was solely about his improvement, although that was the biggest thing. And one of the reasons we talked about, like, you know, building offensive talent around him so you can get a proper evaluation, that was obviously, you know, paramount. Did we think that playoffs were like the most realistic thing in the world? Obviously they were, you know, somewhat realistic. Things can change around in the NFL so much.
Yeah.
But obviously them winning and starting off the season stronger than anticipated has further led the conversation to, we have to be focusing on playoffs and stuff. And if he's the one thing that's holding the Jets back from making a playoff run, that's one thing that's changing it a little bit too. But any season is never just solely about assessing the quarterback. And we never said it's solely about that, but that was certainly a very important thing.
Well, expectations change. Like the Bengals 2 years ago went to the season think they're going to be balls. I'm sure not internally. Then they went to the Super Bowl. Expectations changed. This year, did we expect Sauce to be this good, this quick? Maybe not. AVT this good, this quick, or how he's been playing, maybe not. Brees this good, this quick, maybe not. You know, Q, one of the best interior defensive linemen in the league, maybe not. Like, so expectations change, yes. So when you have a team that's legitimately ready to compete, you need more from your quarterback. You know, it's not like we have a bottom tier roster anymore that's not ready to compete. If we did, I think you give him more time. But again, it changes. Go back and watch Darnold versus Saints on Monday Night Football. Jets destroyed Darnold.
When did Darnold play the Saints on Monday Night Football?
I think we played the Saints on Thursday Night Football in like 2019 or 2020.
I don't think Darnold ever played against the Saints. Zach played against the Saints last year. We play the Saints once every 4 years. Now it's once every 3 years. Darnold did not play against the Saints.
Are you sure?
I don't think
so. I think I remember him playing against the Saints on Thursday. Maybe it's Thursday night. Look it up.
We didn't have many primetime games. We had the primetime game against the Lions. We had a primetime game against the Texans. Darnold played the Saints?
Yeah.
I don't remember this game.
Look it up. Eliminating mistakes was easier with ABT and Brees. Basically, Zach was along for the ride with good D and specials. Yeah, Broncos and Packers, he was along for the ride. Let's just be transparent, you know. So homeboys aren't even reading our comments. They'll be locked in. I'm getting to the comments, Barney. I'm just a little bit behind. So Zach needs the 4 seconds that Tom Brady got in New England. Otherwise, it ain't going to be good. The thing with Tom Brady, though, is he got rid of the ball in a second and a half.
I think he means when he was with the Panthers. When Darnold was with the Panthers, he played the Saints on Monday Night Football.
What did you Google? Did you Google?
I Googled Sam Darnold versus Saints, and it's talking about 2021. He was with the Panthers in 2021.
So Google, come on, you're better at this. Google Sam Darnold.
He didn't fucking play against the Saints as a Jet.
Hey, just do this. Darnold, Saints, Jets. Just type in Jets.
Mr. DeLuca was such a nice man. Him and his wife, right? So much hospitality, Joe. He
You better be
said,
right.
I quoted him. I quoted it. What, the guy's right? Darnold played the Saints?
Hold
As a
on, no,
Jet?
I'm saying you better be right.
Oh, I am. Joe, I said, like, I was saying, like, oh, yeah, we shut the Bengals out in that 2009 game. He's like, how do you guys fucking remember this stuff? Like, I can remember scores and, like, generally what happened in a game, the Jets. You know, I put, a lot of thought into this stuff. I'm telling you, Darnold did not play against the Saints as a Jet. He didn't.
Hold on.
You should remember that, too.
I'm
You
trying. I
fucking do
did. There's a
film
lot of
reviews
shit
for
that
every
happens.
game.
There's a lot of shit that happens. Yeah, I don't know. I gotta try to find it. Darnold or Jets Saints Darnold is what I'm gonna Google and see if
You're
it
not going to
pops up.
find anything. And look, nobody's in the chat saying anything about it either. It didn't
I know.
happen.
I don't. Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna look it up in a little bit. But let's keep moving on.
Just all you got to do is think about it like this. Okay, Darnold's rookie year, which NFC teams did he play against? It was the NFC North, the Lions, game 1. Okay, 2019 season, what NFC division did we play against? We played against the NFC East, the Giants, the Eagles. Okay, 2020, which NFC division did we play against? We played against the NFC West, 49ers, Seahawks. We did not play the NFC South when Darnold was a Jet. It didn't happen.
I get your thinking there, Kyle. But do we also play the Niners and the Rams this year, or do we just play the Seahawks?
Well, they started as of last year. They started doing the thing where you're going to play. You'll play one NFC team out of the entire division once every 3 years. So, like, we played the Eagles last year, even though we didn't play the rest of the NFC East. But that just started last year, and Darnold wasn't on the team last year.
Hypothetically, 5-25 for Q. They could arrange his contract in a way to take a small cap. Yeah, yes, Art. But then again, if you're arranging him to take a small cap hit in 2023, guess what you're expecting to do in 2023? You're expecting to compete, because then those next years, 2024, 2025, you're going to take a bigger contract hit. So they're in a tough spot. So while I look for more chats, which there are a few more, but I want to get through at least the wrap up of the game. Offensive line, Kyle, I will say Dwayne Brown struggled pretty bad in this game. He hasn't looked good in a few weeks now. Laken Tomlinson looked better, but he had a mental lapse or two off the top of my head, which is still frustrating for a guy who's been in the league for forever at this point, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it is. So to have the mental lapses he's having is pretty bad. McGovern I thought was fine. Herbig I thought was okay. And Ogbui was bad this game as well. So I'd say the tackles were bad. Laken Tomlinson still a couple of lapses.
He did lay out Bentley though on one screen.
Who, Ogbui?
Yeah, dude, he laid Bentley out. Like, he sent him flying on one screenplay. And I was like calling him soft. I was like, is he soft? But yeah, he wasn't good though overall.
Bob say you can get free. You could free $30 million by getting out of Lawson. Corey Davis just saying. You have to look at that, but Corey Davis is Zach's number 1 right now, and still a very good receiver for what he's getting paid. Even if it is $14 million next year, he's still a very good receiver. I would personally, over Lawson, I'd rather get rid of JFM next year than Lawson. Like, at least Lawson is, I think he leads the league in QB pressures, which I don't think he's lived up to that. Like, I don't think he's dominating on the edge, but I still think he's pretty solid. But then you're just, you're losing 2 very important players on the team. So kind of, again, you got to figure out a way to make it work with some of these guys. It'll hurt to get rid of Lawson, because then it's JJ and JFM on the edge next year is a lot. JJ's a lot bigger of a downgrade than Lawson is on the edge, at least as a rusher. So
that one's tough. Like, who would you get rid of, JFM or Lawson? The thing about JFM is he's versatile. Lawson's not versatile. But Lawson's clearly much better as an edge rusher than JFM is. So that's not an easy one.
Do we bring back Bryce Huff, and how much? That's a good question.
Yes. How much? How much is the tougher question?
Yeah.
Do you have an idea about that one? Because I was thinking about that too.
It's really hard.
Let's see how he plays the rest of the year first before
it's hard to quantify right now, because at this point you're looking at a guy who's playing 35% of the reps, let's say 30% of the reps, 35. And the Jets are going to try to pay him. Hey, listen, you're very effective, but you only play 30% of the reps. Well, his agents can come back and say, "Fuck you. We want him to play 70% of the reps." So we'll take the contract if he's playing a lot of reps, or we'll go somewhere else. So is he comfortable with taking a lesser contract to play a lesser role, but be really effective in that lesser role?
I think somebody like him as a UDFA, who, you know, a lot of people weren't giving him a shot to be super successful from the beginning. Like, because he hasn't made a whole ton of money yet, it's more likely that you can get him on a cheaper deal versus someone who, you know, signed a $22 million guaranteed contract as a rookie and already has money in the bank. So, but yeah, I mean, like, it made total sense to get rid of, like, Huff as a pure edge rusher. I mean, that's all he is. He's one dimensional, just like Jacob Martin was. It made sense to get rid of Jacob Martin because Huff was outplaying him in that straight edge rusher, third down situation role.
So Marvin Guns, $10 super chat, and then he puts a question after. I'm assuming he messed up, but I appreciate the $10 super chat. He says, "How was Mahomes in his first 2 years?" So
Really good.
Yeah, his second year, he had 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and 12 picks.
Which was his first year as a starter. As a starter,
well.
That was his first year. He only played in one game as his first year player.
The second year, he had 26 and 5. But he showed the Chiefs staff enough, at least in 2017, they got rid of Alex Smith, right? They decided to move forward with Mahomes. So very, very good. That is for sure. But
now, granted, you know, he's with an offensive genius, the Hall of Famer, Andy Reid. Yeah. He had a really solid offensive line those first couple of years. He had, you know, I kind of got a little bit of shit. A little bit, not too much. An Eagle fan question when I said I think Tyreek Hill is going to be a Hall of Famer, and look at the way he's playing this year.
Yeah.
You know, he had him. Kelsey's going to be a Hall of Famer. So there's no doubt that Mahomes had a ton of talent. He was in a perfect situation. He got to learn for a year under Alex Smith, who at least upstairs is a smart quarterback. Maybe not the most talented or best in the world or whatever, but you know, Mahomes was put in a great situation. But he's obviously played better than Zach too. So
yeah, Carr is still a solid QB, and people are like, I saw a couple of people like, no way, Carr would be our best quarterback since. And I know he's been struggling this year a little bit, and the offensive line is a part of that. I know he has Devontae Adams and Waller, so it is a thing I really want to dive into. But he's easily our best quarterback since Chad Pennington, and he's in that, to quantify it, what, Kyle, that 13 to 17 range quarterback. And you put that with this roster and you run the ball. Listen, like, and this is no way to think about it because the rosters aren't exactly the same, but put like a Derek Carr level quarterback on the 2009 Jets. Did they win a Super Bowl? Probably, you know.
Yeah,
they at least get there. They at least get to the dance.
Yeah, and Carr, I mean, he doesn't have like the escapability that Zach has. All right, he doesn't have like the off-platform throws or whatever. But if he can set his feet right, he can make any throw, man. Like, he's got a really talented arm. Yeah,
like you're talking about right now, Zach versus Carr. Carr at this point is a far better quarterback than Zach Wilson. Minus struggle, you know, obviously he struggled this year, but still, you put him on the Jets team. They're not losing that Pats game. That is for sure. I know you can throw up a stinker or two, but Carr is still, again, in that 13 to 17 range for me. Which, the way that Zach Wilson's been playing the last couple of weeks, he's in that bottom tier of quarterbacks right now. Let's just be transparent about it. Daniel
I
Murphy,
don't know why he's playing so bad this year. It was almost kind of impressive what he did last year, dealing with the whole Henry Ruggs shit, and then Waller going down, and then all the other players on the Raiders, like they had the fucking whatever their corner, his name, like, and he had to go out. And then obviously Gruden would happen with that. Like, Carr overcame a lot last year and dealt with a lot. The thing about Carr, and you and I were talking about this in person, and we also exchanged some text too. You're not getting him unless you're trading for him, and you're going to have to trade at least, I think, a decent amount. They're not going to straight cut him, despite whatever somebody said. Oh, you know, the Raiders can save so much if they cut him. They're not cutting him. He'll have multiple suitors. So the difference between like Jimmy G, like, he actually, like, you could maybe get him for pennies. You're not getting Carr for pennies.
Yeah, and then the question is, okay, how much better is Carr than Jimmy G? And I don't want to be talking this stuff already.
And I think he's a decent amount better than Jimmy G. Yeah, although Jimmy G is, you know, he's obviously very familiar with the offense, but yeah.
Yeah, like you're talking about, like, okay, let's say Zach continues to play the way he does. Do you trade a first round pick for Derek Carr? Like, do you think about doing something like that? Because at the end of the day, again, if you don't have a quarterback with this roster, it really does not matter much. So we'll see. It'd be very interesting. Daniel Murphy, we appreciate that $2 super chat. Where is ABT's permanent position on the O-line? It is at right guard. Right guard. It is right guard. He's a better guard than tackle, and you have Laken here, who unfortunately is locked into another 2 or 3 years with the Jets. So 5-4 going to the bye. What Jets fan wouldn't have signed up for that? Completely agree with you, Stephen Angle. The thing is, I wouldn't have signed up for that when we were 5-2. That's the problem. They need to beat
And
the Pats.
And the back end of the schedule probably looks a little bit more tougher than we were anticipating.
It does, because the Vikings are playing better than we expected. The Seahawks are playing better than we expected. So with that being said, listen, at the end of the day, if they just beat, because the way I had this penciled in was you beat home and home with the Pats. We beat them at home, we lose it at their home. If we go there and we beat them, and let's say they do lose to the Bills and they're 6-4, okay, you're 6-4. Again, beat the Jags, the Bears, and the Lions like you should if you're a playoff team. That's 9 wins. Hopefully they get you in. If it doesn't, then listen, you got to win one of Miami, Vikings, or Seahawks at that point, and I think they could. So beat them in New England, and we're back on. But listen, if they lose this game, they lose in New England. Now you're 5-5, and you're talking about winning those 3 games and then having at least 1 or 2 wins out of Seahawks, Vikings, and Dolphins. Gets a bit more sketchy. We're looking at the Ravens to lose and the Bengals to lose, where if they beat New England last week, you're looking at the Jets really controlling their own destiny. So they have to win in New England. You cannot go 1-5 this division and want to make the playoffs. It's just it's not going to happen, or it most likely won't happen. So let's see. Going into this game, I probably will. I think I will. It just depends on.
I'm not. My brother asked me, but I said I can't. Like the Bills had a good D. I can't go to the stadium and be there all week and then see Zach Wilson play like that again. I'm hoping he doesn't, but it'll be, if he does play like that again, it's going to be much easier for me if I'm not there.
Yeah, tickets are like 200 at the minimum right now, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. But Arnold James Longwin, regular Longwin, covering both of our face. Hello, friends. According to the time you read me, God bless you abundantly. I apologize for this instruction. My name is Arnold James. I am 72 years old from California. I'm responsible for this exporting cotton okay. Something about make a donation. I'll be very all right. If the bottom part is
you weren't expecting
sorry, Arnold.
that. I
was not expecting the bottom. I apologize, Arnold. I hope everything works out. I will email me. No, email me. I just didn't. If that's true, I don't really know. Email me. We'll talk about it. I can't address that on a live stream. Going through all the chats right now, just no way. No skills. What did this winnable loss do to your expectations for the next Pats game? Call me crazy, but I expect this team to react well. Road games been okay. I think that this Jets team, and thank you for the super chat, no skills, which you do pretty consistently. Probably every stream, to be completely honest.
Yes,
I expect the Jets to win the next game. I don't think Zach Wilson is as bad as he was this last game. I haven't seen him make that dumb of mistakes. Now, again, the Broncos game, the Packers game, I was disappointed in his decision making and pulling the trigger, and he had a really bad throw against the Broncos where it should have been picked off, but again, it's a penalty and Justin Simmons dropped it anyway. But nonetheless, he's not as bad as he was last week, and the Jets team is good. They're better even on defense than they were. The special teams last week sucked, which we'll talk about. The defense on third down, it sucked too. So, which the Pats did what I thought other teams should do. Kind of have a lot of shorter routes attacking the linebackers, and they did that, and it worked, and they got a lot of yak, and I think other teams should kind of follow suit, but nonetheless, I think they should win, the next game in Foxborough. Going to that game, I'll predict the Jets to win. Let's see.
I'm very confident they can win. I'm pretty confident they can win that game too. The Bills, I'm not confident that they're going to win either of those games.
Let's Royal Claude. I'm pretty confident that you were wrong on this one. That they can cut.
By the way,
this year,
I think OTC is way better than Spot Track from everything I know.
Yeah. So Kyle, any other comments on the offensive line you want to get past? We only have about 30 minutes.
No, I don't think we need to talk about the offensive line anymore.
Okay, so let's go to tight ends and running backs. So they're two.
Actually, probably Conklin's best game, you'd say.
Yeah,
you'd brought up the jersey thing.
I did bring up the jersey thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. After a game like that, he keeps stacking a couple of those together. And again, I think it's more Zach Wilson in the offense than it is Conklin not succeeding. Like, he's been a good blocker. That one catch was very nice. The first touchdown, the second touchdown. He rocker stepped the shit out of that guy. Conklin looked very, very good this game. So I was impressed. Past that, Uzama had a catch. I forget off the top of my head.
It was that he ran like almost like I wouldn't say it was like a full corner or like a full out, like an inside release, and that was one of Zach's best throws in the game. And give credit to Uzama, he caught it straight hands and turned and made some yak after the catch. It was late in the game, fourth quarter. One of the Jets' better plays on the day for sure.
So Tomlinson is $17.3 million cap hit next year, Kyle. If we cut him, we save 8.8, but it's 8.5 dead. So you're paying him $8 million to not be in the team. I don't think the Jets are going to.
Not happening.
Unless they're going to expand that and put it, future years into dead money. But then you're doing that with C.J. Mosley. Now you're doing that with Laken Tomlinson. So he will be on the team next year. Now 2024, you're talking about saving $13 million and $4 million dead cap. Okay, I can see that. But they're not paying him $8 million to not be on the team next year. I severely doubt that.
Yeah, and you brought him in. Like, listen, for all his ills, at least he suits up every Sunday, right? You brought him in because, however many straight games not missing, and he's been out there. He's one of the good locker room guys, culture changer. There's no way. One of your big, he was like I think he was your day one signing, your first big signing. Joe Douglas said we're always going to be good on the offensive line. He's been in the system. Even if he's struggled a little bit this year, they think he's going to.
Wasn't it Uzama this year?
It might have been. Laken was a day one. He was really early. We knew that. Yeah.
Or it was Barrios. It was Barrios, then Uzama, then Laken. That's on the top of my head.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the first
he's going to be here.
It was George Fant was like his first year. Like, what the fuck is going on here? BG the kid. I'm not out on Wilson yet. He's still dumb as fuck, but he's got talent.
I'm not out yet either. I was very, very critical, and no lie, Joe and I, as well as some other, smart Jets fans that are in the know, we were also talking about, okay, what can we do at quarterback next year? Like, it was a serious conversation. The conversation needs to be had, but I'm not out yet. But dude, the Amber Alert is on, Zach. Get your fucking shit together.
Somebody stole a baby. Amber. So Amber Alert is you stole a baby, right? It's
I guess I don't know. I mean, they also send out that stuff for other stuff too sometimes. But yeah,
no, it's like if a kid is abducted, is an Amber Alert.
Is that the only context it's used for? You're a man of the law.
Yeah,
so
Amber Alerts, and there's like silver alerts for like older people. There's a couple different things, but Amber Alerts are for like pretty sure. Okay. I never had a call when like under 18 years old somebody got taken. It's usually a legal thing, mama data, and they don't agree, and the data the mom takes it. That's usually what it is, but. Yeah, put out the Amber Alert for Zach Wilson. So moving on to, I guess, the rest of the skill position groups for the offense. Receiver, Mims, obviously, listen, like he had some bumps in the road. Apparently, he's going to be involved in the game plan. Great, because if Mims, it could be what we're going to get to that comment in a second, but if he could be what we thought he was his rookie year, great. Because we thought he was going to be a legit number 1 or 2 receiver on the team. He proved himself this week. Let him play more. Let's see if Mims can be a solid contributor for this team. If he's proven himself to the coaching staff and he's proven on film, then let's give him a shot. So good game from Mims. Obviously, Garrett Wilson, rookie of the week. He the out and up was very nice. He had a couple of nice, really good yak plays. A nice catch on the right sideline where Zach put a little bit behind him. So very good game from him. Very good game from Mims. Past that, not much from anybody else.
Brought him down like that. Shovel pass on a speed end around, brought him down by his face mask, but he looked really explosive there, right? Like he's good with the ball in his hands. They need to give him more reverses, or at least put him in motion more, to at least give the threat. Because now, okay, like he looked pretty good on a couple of them. Teams will at least expect it more, so that'll get linebackers shifting over a gap, and then if you're running inside zone off that, it's going to make it a little bit easier for some of the linemen to get up and reach. They need to do that more.
Yeah, and that's what we kind of talked about with, just passing running backs in general, but like talk about Elijah Moore getting designed touches. I'm putting Barrios and Garrett Wilson above him in terms of yak. So you're talking about your number 3. Yeah, so that's the reason he's not getting a lot. Now past that, and Barrios, I don't think he had a catch this game, but he had that one out route where it was very questionable if he was held or not. So, and I'm going to show it in some of the film review because there are definitely penalties that were not called in the Pats, but nonetheless, past that, Kyle, we'll get to the defense in a second, but NY fan Jan says 1 game out of 5. Sorry, he's not Mahomes. So Zach Wilson was very good against the Broncos. He was also very good against the Pats, Kyle, right? He great decisions, accurate, hitting his first guy when he's open, hitting his second guy when he's open. he was very good in those games. Or
Zach Wilson was the worst quarterback in the NFL each of the last 2 weeks.
so I think Fan Jan just says wins are a quarterback stat. He won the game. He's great, And I'm assuming because Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl, he was the best quarterback in the league that year too, right? Trent Dilfer was great, correct?
Yeah.
Joe
Joe Flacco the whole season he was absolutely awesome in 2012 because he won the Super Bowl.
And Mark Sanchez carried us to the playoffs in 2009 and 2010, right? Because we got there and Sanchez was the quarterback.
Yeah. Dude, we would have if it weren't for Sanchez, we wouldn't have even sniffed the playoffs.
No way. He carried us, yeah, for sure. Zach Wilson also carried us when he scored, minus Brees Hall, 9 points, 10 points. He was great in that game, yeah, 100%. Nonetheless.
By the way, can we say this about Zach? I mean, we did see this in the Steelers game, and even though he threw those 3 terrible interceptions, at least, after the last one, the chuck it up in prayer one, he did stay aggressive. Yeah. Right? He did stay aggressive in this game. They were down by multiple scores, and obviously he stayed aggressive in the Steelers game too. So that was an encouraging sign too.
Yeah. Even though it was after that he missed the Conklin up the seam where he could have just stepped up in the pocket and threw the ball. But
well, you obviously noticed he tripped on that play, right? So Judon attacked. He got a good half-man relationship on Dwayne Brown on that play.
From the left side, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Dwayne Brown's foot hits Zach Wilson's left foot, and Wilson trips a little bit. Now, he doesn't fall to the ground or anything, and he has room to step up, and he does step up. So he rushed it. He could have set his feet and then threw, but he just never fully set his feet, and it was straight arm.
Just sprinted for you.
Yeah.
So past that, Kyle, defensive line. I don't think the pressure it was they had 6 sacks, so good game. There were some times where Mac Jones was sitting back there pretty. And that probably has a lot to do with Nathan Shepard and Thomas and all these guys being in for some reps. But with that being said, Q, dude, he's dominating. He had another sack and a couple of pressures where he just absolutely shit on the guy across from him.
This is the Q that we expected coming out of college.
Yeah,
it took several years, but it's here.
Absolutely dominant.
He's so good at taking what you give him, man, and he's got so many good counters. Some guys just got one move, they throw it, and if it doesn't work, end of the rep. Quinnen, he works whistle to whistle.
He's been a lot more forceful with his power this year. He's definitely taking it to guys more. So I'm happy for Q. Past that, JFM, he had a good sack where he bull rushed the shit out of the right tackle, but then he had also another terrible penalty, so it erases it out. That's a bad game for him. Sheldon Rankins had another play or two in this game, and then another guy who people are not expecting me to say, but Nathan Shepard the last couple of weeks has been stepping up. He looked pretty good.
Where credit's due. It's looking like a good signing right now, to be honest. $1 million or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give him credit where it's due. Penalties, or he had a bad penalty, but was it the Broncos game where he had a late hit, or was it the Packers game? One of the reasons he had a really bad late hit. I think Broncos. Minus that though, he had a sack this game. He had a really good tackle for loss where he completely shit on the center or the guard. Clemens had a sack. It was a complete cleanup sack. It was coverage completely. And then Martin had a sack too, which I didn't highlight because obviously he's gone, and we kind of get to that just a little bit now because we're on the defensive line. We'll get to linebacker safety.
It was one of his better plays of the year. It was on Marcus Cannon, right?
Now, are you okay with trading him? Josh Martin and a fifth for
because listen, Jermaine Johnson, you need to play him, right?
And Huff,
he's missed the last couple. Yeah, well, Huff has been so just that straight third down pass rushing situations. There's no way you cannot Huff is getting pressures at a really, really high rate. He looks really explosive getting out of his stance. He can win off the edge, or sometimes he can win with power too. He absolutely needs to be playing. He's outplayed Jacob Martin. But at the same time, Jermaine Johnson, you haven't seen a ton from him this year. When he's healthy, you want to see him play more reps too. So I think it was the right move. I understand you want to have depth on your D-line and stuff, but if you can get a draft pick, and clear some cap in future years, which is going to help you sign Huff, who's been the better player, makes sense.
Yeah. Hawk, imagine if we gave Zach this time to develop that we gave Q just a thought. The difference is one is much more circumstantial. You can have Q not necessarily work out in year 4, where if Zach Wilson doesn't work out in year 3, you're throwing a playoff roster in the drain. That's the problem. But I
by
get
the way,
it, Hawk. I get it.
and even though Quinnen was not dominant the way that we expected him to be as the 3rd overall pick, especially in year 2, he was very, very, very solid.
And you're still talking about Q being like even last year he wasn't great, but he was still like at the bare. And this is being dramatic. I'll be dramatic for a reason though. Last year he was average. In year 2 he was solid. Zach Wilson right now is not solid and he's not even average. So there's a big difference in their play if you're really going to compare just him to Q. Nonetheless, moving past the defensive line again, Martin. Yeah, I'm good with it. You move up whatever 30, 40, 50 picks for while you're clearing cap, while you're creating space for guys like Huff and JJ to play. I'm okay with it. The linebackers this game, Kyle, sucked. They were not good. They got consistently attacked. Where they were pretty and I forget exactly because I went through the film pretty quick this week too. But the Pats' plan was to pretty much to overload the hook and the curl the flat, like the linebackers, and just send one vertical to clear out that corner. And we're just attacking the linebackers over and over again with Yak. And Mosley was indecisive at times. He missed a wide open pick that Mac Jones threw right to his chest. I think he actually got tipped, but he threw it right to his chest, dropped it. You had that play where I forget exactly what happened, but Quincy missed the tackle on the sideline, which Shaw had to then clean up for a first down. So Mosley was not good. Quan got targeted a couple times in coverage. Quincy was not good. Bad game from the linebackers. And then the safeties, listen, and it's so funny because I said on Twitter this after I think missed tackles, whatever it was, the safeties have not been good this year, or haven't been as good as some people think. And then the guy commented back oh, it's funny that you just say this now. I'm like, dude, there are hours of live streams and hours of film reviews you can go watch where I've been saying the safeties have not been good for weeks now. They've been covered up by the pass rush and by the cornerbacks, but they've been struggling. Whitehead has a good player too, but that missed tackle on Stevenson where he throws his shoulder to there could have been a stuff at the line or a loss. And then you have LaMarcus Joyner who comes downhill, doesn't close up any ground as he's breaking down, and he runs right past into the right side. Like the safeties are struggling mightily, minus a few splash plays. And I get that Joyner had the pick even last week, but if you watch a film show, I'm pretty sure I put him in the duds last week, even though he had the pick. So the middle of the defense, which we thought would be the weakness this year, showed up because Bill Belichick is smart and he attacked our weakness. And I'll expect other teams to do that. Run stick concepts, run concepts that overload that curl the flat and that hook player and clear out the one and make them make plays in space and be decisive. Because I get that Quincy and Quan and all these guys can make plays in space because they're athletic, but you also have to be there mentally to process it. And if you're going to give guys releases, free releases, or just not get there quick enough, even if you get there quick, they're still going to gain 4 or 5 yards. So Bill Belichick in the offense did a good job of attacking the linebackers, and obviously the safeties just sucked at tackling. So disappointing game from the middle of our defense, at least second and third level.
Yeah, I also liked when we were just talking about attacking the weaknesses. There was also one play where they ran a design screen. I don't even know how you describe the play, but it was like a design screen, but it was almost like you throw it to the guy who's crossing from the other side of the field, and then you have 2 guys who are already lined up to the right side blocking, which is Sauce's area. And if we're being honest, Sauce is not a great tackler at this point in time. I think you even mentioned that during the game too, and they ended up getting, I think it was a 3rd down conversion too there. So, listen, force Sauce to make tackles, right? It's not a strength of his. I'm not saying he's not willing or anything, but it's definitely not the strength of his game too. So, give the Pats credit where they're due. Jacoby Myers, he stood out several times as having some really good blocks against some of the Jets linebackers and or corners. The linebacker safeties, not a good one.
So Hawk, we were saying that Quinnen was a disappointment as a 3rd overall pick, and last season we were talking about how much of a disappointment he was, but we're still you're referencing him to Zach. Zach as a 2nd overall pick is much more disappointing than Q was at this point, where Zach Wilson is in the bottom tier of quarterbacks. Q was disappointing because he was solid but not great. We expect Q to be great, which he is now, but he was always solid to good. So yes, disappointing for a 3rd overall pick, but still a good player. Zach is disappointing as a 2nd overall pick and a bad player. So there's a big difference between Q and our relative expectations of him as a 3rd overall pick as a D tackle, and our relative expectations to Zach as a quarterback. You could not say that Zach Wilson in year 2 is as good as Q was in year 2 or 3 as a D tackle. So I get what you're saying, but it's completely different circumstances. And then you extrapolate that to, okay, well, Zach Wilson's the quarterback. We need to strike soon. Like the roster is ready to strike, so it's not as dire as your D tackle isn't working out. So you have to the process is rushed. Is it fair? Not necessarily, but that's where we are. So if you really think that Q is just as disappointing as Zach was in year 2 and 3, then I don't know what you're watching, my friend. And you're here a lot, but come on. I know you're trying to defend Zach, but that's crazy.
Think about how I've criticized Q a lot over the years, but what was the tone and the nature of my criticisms? Never once did I say Quinnen Williams is bad. I always kind of like couch my statements, and I always try to put these clarifiers because I know that Q had a bunch of supporters and stuff, and he was obviously never a bad player. I always say, like, I need to see more from him. I need to see more from him. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's elite. I always would question Joe, like, listen, I don't see elite yet. I never, ever, ever said he's a bad player. I said I like Quinnen Williams. I have his jersey. But I need to see more. I never said he's bad. 25? Zach Wilson has been bad. Like, he's been bad.
We never said Q was bad.
He's just been bad. And I'm sorry, like, there's a lot of dumbasses on Twitter and stuff. But you look at some people who put out like quarterback rankings and stuff. Yep. Anybody's going to have Zach Wilson as like a bottom 5 quarterback right now. It just is what it is. Yeah. Play right now. I mean, people can change. Like, like he's young. He could take a big leap, and it's a week-to-week league, right? So we'll see. We'll see. Listen, Zach, actually, all things considered, the amount of players he was missing last year and went to Buffalo in December, decent amount of wind in that game. He did not play bad against Buffalo last year, right? Even though you might expect him to. He could go out and have a solid game against the Bills. And I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I'm not expecting it, but I wouldn't be shocked. So we'll see how he plays this week.
Yeah, and Hawk, I don't think you watch the film reviews, but I will give you a free month to go. And listen, I actually respect that you're not being like, insulting and stuff right now. But I know you're betting here plenty. Go back, and I'll give you a free subscription for a month, which you can get anyway. Go back and just watch the segments of Zach Wilson. They're pretty much immediately. It'll take 20, 30 minutes of your time. Go watch the breakdown of him versus the Packers, the breakdown of him versus the Broncos, and tell me he was not bad in those games, because he was bad in those games. It's just undeniable. He was missing guys wide open. The Conklin throw over the middle against the Broncos, he saw him wide open, had to clutch the ball again and then throw it, and he got tackled. We could have got yacked. Like, there was plenty of bad plays in him the last 2 games. In this game, statistically and just the eye test, he was bad. Those games, it wasn't statistically, because I'm not going to say 100 yards is a bad game, but he was a bad quarterback in both those games. He just was. Moving past that, corners. DJ Reed actually struggled a little bit this game. There's a couple tackles I wanted him to make. There was a couple of plays where he was beat deep, where the ball wasn't thrown, where he kind of is doing what he typically does, and he lets guys get into his blind spot and get vertical on him, which I don't love. So I thought Reed was iffy this game, but still, listen, don't get on me. He's still a top 10-ish corner this year. He's been very, very good. This game, I just didn't think he was great. Sauce Gardner was very, very good this game. Michael Carter II, he's been solid, but he also gave up another third and long-ish this game. I forget
what play was that, Joe?
I could if I could find it, I'll tell you. Let's see. Sure, I could find it in a second. Let's see. I can share it real quick, just so video file. But
while you do that, somebody's talking about like Tua and Jalen Hurts. I mean, dude, they've shown way more than Zach Wilson has, if we're just being honest. And I shit on Tua a lot this offseason, but you can't tell me that he hasn't improved a lot. Obviously, it's easier to improve when you get Tyreek Hill on your team.
Yeah.
And Waddle's obviously been a stud. Okay.
Yeah, right here. Which
that's Myers, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Just by the body type. I got it small. I don't have it full screen right now.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, so nonetheless, yeah, they were good again. And I'll show some plays of DJ Reed in the review. But that's his primary weakness is when he shuffles, he either looks back to the quarterback and reacts to guys getting in his face, like going vertically a little bit too late, or when he bails, he lets guys get into his blind spot and he'll let them stack them vertically. And that's why some balls, if they are thrown, well, he can get beat with deep, which again, people are gonna have their flaws. Sauce was great. Mike Carter second was good, but again, he's getting up some third downs. Eccles he was in for a few snaps. I didn't really notice anything of him. Pass anything to add to corners before we get to special teams and coaching, just quickly, then go to the Pats.
No,
to the Bills.
No, but there might have been a lot of people who didn't see how bad that Ramondre Stevenson big run early in the third quarter was. If you'll oblige me in pulling up that clip really quick just to show how bad. I know you did put it on Twitter. You put it on Twitter.
What play you said? What did you say?
The big Ramondre Stevenson run where Whitehead shoots in there and doesn't wrap.
Yeah,
I think that's one that you got to pull up. I think
that's fine.
I don't know if you even mentioned that other than saying that the safeties definitely struggled.
Yeah, I forget what I even labeled it. It was like Whitehead Joyner, yikes. That's really what I typed in when I was putting up this play.
Yeah, this is a big yikes, man. Ooh.
Yeah, and this was the play to like start off the first half too, or the second half. Where I was like, dude, this isn't it, Kyle. Like we knew it was gonna happen. This play is like one of the first or second plays of the second half, just brutal. And Whitehead is that guy, and I said that on the film review of him. He's gonna make one really big hit. And then he has plays like this where he just feels like throwing his shoulder, not wrapping up, not driving his feet.
Yeah, this is so frustrating. This is maddening on so many levels. Like it's one thing not to wrap; it's another thing to completely stop running your feet too.
Mm-hmm.
Like what the fuck was that? Like I understand, the Bengals game. If I'm not mistaken, it was him who laid the hit on Boyd. Like at least he came in with speed when he hit him. Like here, like how did you expect to bring him down there?
Yeah, and then same thing with Joyner. Like he closes ground within 5 yards away and he's off balance right now. He just decides, I'm just not going to close ground. I'm just going to let him pick which way he's going to go here. Like, what are you doing, bud? Doesn't get low. Just completely just tries to straight up just wrap him up. Like it's fucking Ramondre Stevenson.
Joyner was bad at coming from on high to fit the run, and definitely in your review of him, you highlighted that a lot. There was some really bad plays. I think if I remember correctly, one of them was against Latavius Murray. There was some really bad Joyner plays trying to fit the run from on high. Yeah. Yeah, they weren't good.
We can Daniel Jones, Tua, and Jalen Hurts all looked like backups in year two. Listen,
Tua not good. Jalen Hurts. There were some impressive moments with Jalen Hurts, although he did have a pretty good talented roster, really solid offensive line.
Yeah.
They obviously took really big talent helps. I mean, if you got receivers running open and stuff, but also like they're taking like look at Hurts's deep ball this year. Like he's hitting on a lot of these deep routes and stuff.
No, talent helps. Like Tua just got Hill and all these guys, but it's not like Zach has talent. Like Zach is not performing well. And with that being said, we're giving him more time. I'm giving him the rest of the season, and then we'll discuss after. I'm not saying pull the plug now. I'm just concerned, and you might be right. There might be a situation where we may think, okay, at the end of year two, pull the plug. He's back year three, and he balls out. But is that a risk you're willing to take with how this roster is constructed and it's ready to push for a legitimate playoff push? I don't know. We're not going to have that discussion now fully. Special teams was balls this game, Kyle. Greg Zuerlein missed 45-yard kick. Braden Mann was the first kick of the kickoff of the second half, and the first kick of the game. He punts it like 22 yards and gives the Pats the ball in like, what was it, the Jets 46? I was like, what the fuck? Did he really punch it that bad? So like while he's had
his onside kick was shit too.
Yeah. Which by the way, does he really have to wrap around his left leg and kick it from behind his leg? Like, do we have to be that fancy now? Like, come on. But nonetheless, special teams was bad. And then again, coaching. Do I love Elijah Moore getting 10 snaps? No. Do I like only running the ball, 14, 15 times? No, I don't. Do I like the fact there's a lot of deep route concepts versus blitz looks? No. Do I like the fact that 3rd and 2 we go empty with a struggling quarterback? No. So there's problems with the coaching as well. But there are people out there who are like, oh, fire LaFleur. You are jumping the gun way too big in that aspect. The other thing I don't like, Kyle, is that we activated Streveler and then we deactivated him, whatever it was. In this game, I would have loved to see him for 3, 4, 5 reps, test the Pats and see if they learned from what happened with Justin Fields. Because at the end of the day, is he going to go through his reads and all this stuff and be an impressive quarterback? No, but can he have a read on a wildcat type play?
He can probably throw better than Tebow too. Well, he can throw better than Tebow. There's no question.
So I don't know why they didn't pull him or put him in the game. They said like something happened during the week and it just didn't work out. But I was definitely disappointed in the coaching staff in that aspect. But there are people out there who are literally just blaming LaFleur and saying it's all LaFleur's fault and it's not Zach Wilson, which is obviously absurd.
Well, people believe what they want to believe. It's been a while since I've said that on here, but I have said that many times in the past. It's the definition of blue pilled. Listen, if you like Zach Wilson, there's a ton of reasons to like him, right? Like, I think he's a kid who works really hard. He obviously cares and really genuinely loves football. He's uber talented, right? We drafted him second overall. Everyone wants to see him succeed, especially when you've missed on the quarterback so many times. When you want to believe that he is good, right? Everybody's making these Zach Wilson is good T-shirts and wearing them. We saw a couple at the people at the game who had them. If that's what you want to believe, you can, find ways to lie to yourself and stuff and say that. Has Michael LaFleur been perfect? Right? You just named it several criticisms, right? Going empty in certain situations, not getting him in rhythm earlier. You just pointed out several criticisms. But to say Michael LaFleur has been horrible and he's the only reason why Zach Wilson's struggling, it's like, come on, dude. Like, literally, if you have a player open and they're in the progression and you're waiting, you're being hesitant, you're double clutching.
Yeah,
that's on the quarterback. There's no way that's on the coordinator.
Uzama, they like, use him to his strength. Uzama in the Broncos game was wide open on a wide cross. It's one of the easiest concepts you're ever going to have. Yeah. He's open. Zach Wilson fades back and throws the ball over his head. How is that Michael LaFleur's fault? Like, hit the open receiver. Just like when Darnold, is running some type of mesh concept against the Broncos and, has a really, I forget which receiver was open, and he just has to sit and deliver the ball, and it's an easy first down. Instead, he holds onto the ball and takes a sack and gets hurt. You're gonna blame that on Adam Gase? Listen, there's plenty of reasons to criticize Gase, but that play is not on Gase. No, it wasn't. Yeah, there was wide open on that dig. Yeah, I remember that, which we brought up 1,000 times in terms of criticizing Sam Darnold. He's like, oh, he got him hurt. It's like, no, he got himself hurt. But again, there.
Boldy keeps asking. I actually have the power to do this now. We did get another super chat from the NY Bully, so we should pull that up. I don't know if we have any others that we missed, but Swolsey keeps talking about this, so apparently he wants us to address this. You guys are glossing over.
I just brought it up.
Oh, you did? My bad. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I said no. I said I don't. Yeah, no, I said I don't like the fact that he only ran it 14, 15 times. But the thing is, against the Pats, like, how many times were they filling every single gap and showing 6, 7 guys in the line of scrimmage? So it's not necessarily easy to run. So while I don't agree necessarily with 14, 15 runs, whatever it was, you can't just run into pressure looks the entire game, because then you're going to get 2-3 yards. It's not like they were popping off. Like, what James Robinson and Michael Carter were okay this game, but they both averaged 3.5 yards a carry. Like, they weren't lighting it up. And then they just never saw the ball again. Like, the Pats were stacking the box and making Zach Wilson beat them. So I think it should have been a little bit higher, but there's a reason they passed so much. Now, do I agree with that on 3rd and 2, where I think it should just be, mano a mano, let's go at it? No, I think they should have ran the ball there, but maybe a little bit higher. But again, it's also like there are plays in the Packers game where you see guys wide open. I break it down, and Zach is looking at them, and he pulls the ball away and looks somewhere else, and then takes a sack or runs out of bounds to throw the ball away. He's just not taking what's there at times. It's evident. It is immediately there. Just go watch. There's a reason some of these reviews are 2-3 hours, because I try to show you guys all the bullshit, or decipher the bullshit. So it is what it is. So yeah, that's my problem with coaching. Past that, I can't really think of much.
What about the decision not to challenge Zach's second interception? If we're talking coaching, right? We were talking with Pats fans after the game. They're like, how did your coach not challenge that second interception where McCourty's knee was out of bounds?
But at the end of the day, and I watched it again, and it looked like 50-50 to me. So yeah, I want to see that challenged, but I almost erased that from my memory. I was like, listen, the Minka one, that should have maybe been a pick. So this one, the world works out and it balances out. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, for that decision, he deserved the pick, so I didn't really even care that much, to be honest. But in terms of challenging it, yeah, I guess he probably should have. So
could have helped us win the game, that's for sure.
And people are blaming the O-line, and the O-line is a problem, and people are blaming the coaching. But listen, in that Broncos game, he threw for 103 yards. If he hits Uzama on the Y cross, if he hits at least the 3, 4, 5 other plays that I showed in that review, that guys were open and he just didn't hit, he probably has. Listen, not a great game, and I don't know what stats specifically would have been, but he hits 4 more throws for another 60, 70 yards, and he has maybe 180 yards and a touchdown instead of no touchdowns and 103 yards, whatever it was, and it makes it look a lot better. But that's on Zach. It's not, LaFleur can't be in his headset saying, well, your first read's open, hit him. Zach has to perform at the same time. And people, and this, Kyle, it's so much easier to make a problem just one pronged. It's either the O-line, it's either LaFleur, or it's either Zach, because you don't want to lump in kind of everything to make it a harder situation to solve. But listen, at the end of the day, There's blame on Zach. There's blame on the O-line, and there's blame on LaFleur. It's a multi-pronged problem, but Zach, the last game, was by far the biggest problem.
If I could just stick with him for a moment, so we talked a lot about like decision-making process, bailing out and stuff like that. We also really need to talk and mechanics leading to inaccuracy problems. But if we're just talking about the sheer volume of inaccurate throws, I'm seeing all these different metrics. Like there's so there's not just PFF, but there's like True Media, which I see people citing now. There's Sports Info SIS, and there's all these different like statistical websites and whatever that quantify like off-target throws and things like that. Even ESPN Next Gen Stats or NFL Next Gen Stats. By any of these metrics, Zach Wilson is like the most inaccurate quarterback in the league. And I'm sorry, the tape backs that up. Like there are some throws that are just like look at that. The first dig route to what was it, Corey Davis in the Broncos game. It's like the ball's like 10 yards over his head or something like that. I mean, like some of these throws are just like, it's like, what was that? Like his first play in this game, right? It's like, he tries to get the ball in the flat to Michael Carter. And it's just like, I mean, listen, the I believe it was the apex defender. I mean, he got on Michael Carter quick, but you could have gotten like 3-4 yards if Zach hits that ball, and it's an easy throw. It's an easy throw right there. And Zach just completely throws it in the dirt. It's like there's too many of these throws week in, week out, and it's not. And sometimes it's not just like I've said a decent amount of it is like, okay, him trying to throw off platform, but some of it too is just him in the pocket. He has time, and it's just like he's just ripping it.
This is true. Challenges our turnovers are our challenge. They're all like auto reviewed. Kyle, I completely blanked out on that. That is true. The headset does show.
Yeah, I knew that too, but I feel like I don't know. I did know that too, but I feel like aren't some turnovers still challenged though? Like
maybe if it's not called a turnover, I guess
I don't know.
I guess if it's not, I guess if you think it's a turnover and it's not a turnover, you can challenge it. But if it's called a turnover on the field, there's no reason to challenge it because it's going to get reviewed anyway. Candle Jack, $2 super chat. So is Zach shell shocked, too scared to throw now? Yeah, in the Broncos game and in the Packers game, to me, it looked like he was trying to not make a mistake. That's legitimately what it looked like. Where last year he was letting those rip because they might have been funding from behind, so he just had to. Where this year he's definitely overthinking himself. So I think he can turn around. I think he has to just realize that what he's seeing, just trust his eyes because he's getting his eyes to the right spot in a decent amount of time. And I'll talk about that play where I think Dan Orlovsky broke it down. Like that first play was like the double slants with the flat to Michael Carter, and he's like, oh, he never looks to the second slant or whatever he was saying. But if you watch it, it might just be based on the linebacker's hips and how he was turned that he kind of went off the second read. It's supposed to be inside outside flat, but I think he came off the second read just based on how his first read went. But that it just is what it is. But as of right now, yeah, he's playing a little bit too conservatively. Like he needs to really see it open. Now, past that, let's see. Am I missing something here? Okay, no. First pass.
Jordan, did you see this one from Jordan Victor? You guys both overhyped Zach big time, especially Kyle.
Based on what? Like I don't. Again, it's based on me watching 8-9 hours, knowing 8-9 hour breakdowns of him. I don't think he was overhyped coming to the league.
Wasn't your Zach Wilson thing in four parts?
Yeah, like 3 or 4 parts, like 2, 3, 4 hours each. So it's not, and that's the thing with
By the way, you watch it. You could listen to how many times Blewett says you couldn't walk this into a better window or something like that.
No,
there's a lot of just like really ridiculous throws in his college days.
How could we anticipate him throwing absolute dots on the sideline in college and then him completely missing those throws in the NFL? Like it is very, and that's why quarterback is so hard to predict. It is very, very, very hard to know how a guy is going to process at an NFL level, even if he processes well at the NFL level or at the collegiate level. And it's almost impossible to know if they're going to get the yips. Like Zach Wilson has a little bit of the yips right now. It's impossible to predict. So I think that it's easy for people to say who aren't recorded consistently, or we don't write down their comments and say, oh, we overhyped them. We don't know what their opinions were. I know Jordan Victor is a he's here often. I don't know how big of a supporter he is of ours. But nonetheless, his college tape was very impressive. I'm not going to back down on how impressive he was coming out of BYU. Now, does it work out? No. Like, Trevor Lawrence was generational. Now look at him. Like, he's not playing so great. There's been plenty of quarterbacks people fail on. That's what GMs who make not $20 million, but millions of dollars a year consistently fail on quarterbacks. It's the hardest position to evaluate. It really is. So, did we overhype him? Maybe, sure, to Jordan, but it is also nice when you're not recorded all the time. So, sure, I guess we overhyped him, because go back to the reviews and tell me which play I overhyped, because he deserves a lot of the hype he got.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when we did our stat prediction show, I predicted him to have a pretty ridiculous stat line for a rookie, but I was pretty high on him, and I felt like it was, I guess, decently justified. But I don't know. I mean, like, if he ends up being a bust, it's kind of one of those things where hopefully you always get better at evaluating stuff as you learn the game more, and you say, okay, well, what mistake did I make when it came to that?
Mm-hmm.
And right off the top of my head, I'm thinking, okay, well, if he dealt with more pressure in college, it's kind of hard to, like, okay, if he's not dealing with that a lot, how do you evaluate that? Like, I can't, like, turn on the film and see him in high pressure situations where he's constantly, has to throw with defenders in his face. It wasn't there on the film a lot. So I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But okay, Kyle, do you want to pull up the Pats?
Sure. Yeah.
Zach
you can,
glasses, easy fix.
I wish it were that simple.
No, it's again.
Remember when Jason Winston got LASIK eye surgery, and he was supposed to stop throwing those dumb interceptions? I don't think that worked for him.
I never wanted Zach. His college tape versus accounts doesn't translate. You're talking a 4.3 pro corner versus a 4.6 college corner. His tight windows are shut. I skipped over NY Bully super chat. Hold on,
we must get that. And because we got NY Bully, he's very generous with the super chats as well. Sometimes I'll do several per stream, which he did tonight. So thank you so much, NY Bully.
Yeah, he's consistently throwing the money down. But yeah, like, Zach Window is making tight window throws at the college level that he's not making now. Like, he's not attempting tight window throws. He's not attempting throws that there's no guys within 10 yards of his target. So, like, that's hard to translate or to see, like, happening as well. And again, how many dots did he throw on the sideline? Like, over guys, really, really tight window, good throws, couldn't walk into a better spot, where now he misses a guy 5 yards behind him. Like, how
all right, listen. Joe, this comment, there's definitely a grain of truth in it, but then there isn't as well, because you can make the same argument for Josh Allen. Well, Josh Allen played at fucking Wyoming, right? Like, he wasn't playing against elite defenses with corners that ran 4.3s and things like that. So you could say, well, Josh Allen's game doesn't translate too, because he didn't have to go against. The grain of truth to that comment that I'll say is that, and I've been saying this for a while, and I don't know that I'm right or wrong about it yet, but this is the working theory that I have going on in my mind, is that I think Zach's learning curve, and I was saying this a lot last year, might be a little bit steeper, because it's taking him a while to get used to the speed of the game, because he's going against, like, faster corners and stuff that can close, and faster linebackers that can close quicker, versus someone who played in the SEC, who's going to go against some of those pro guys. They're a little bit more used to the speed, like the arm strength. I mean, that obviously translates, right? Like, your arm strength is the same, but you getting used to the speed of the game, that can obviously be different. And look, it did take Josh Allen a good 2 solid years before he actually became into the beast that he is. So, I mean, I think there's a grain of truth to what you're saying, but just to say that his game doesn't translate because he went against guys who were slower, I mean, that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Yeah,
anyway.
Patrick Mahomes was playing guys at Texas Tech, and Ben Roethlisberger at Miami of Ohio. Like, we could bring that. That's again. Then let's only draft quarterbacks from the SEC. Like, we can't. That's not a fair argument. Kyle, you answer this first. I'm hoping you pick one thing and I can pick the other. I don't know if you see the super chat, but NY Bully again. What is the one main solution slash suggestion that you both have would have for Zach Wilson to expedite the process of him getting better as a pro quarterback? What is your one solution / suggestion for Zach, I guess, specifically?
More quick rhythm throws, less play action where he's turning his back to the defense.
People want more play action, by the way. Get up. No, I don't agree with that. I would say for him, like individual traits, I kind of have two. It's almost cheating. One is trusting his eyes. I want him to trust his eyes more and fire the ball, because there's plenty of times where he's looking at guys and just not delivering the ball, and he wants the bigger play, and he tries to roll out. So take the
Yeah, you'll never be good. You'll never be good being, double clutching like that. And that's one thing. And I'm so sorry I'm interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
Sam Darnold, he did trust his eyes, but his eyes were wrong so many times.
Wrong.
Yeah.
So be boring, which is it's almost like too easy to say, but be boring. Take the first read if it's open. 2, pocket presence, dude. You gotta learn how to conflict climb and stop bailing out of the pocket way too early. So I think those two things would lead him to being immediately much, much better. And there's obviously other things you can improve on, but I would say pocket presence, take that first read. So I guess we can, Roethlisberger played for Miami, Ohio. That's what I said. Did I say Ohio, Miami? No, I said Miami, Ohio, right? Something like that.
I don't know.
So let's see. The Bills roster, Kyle. Let's recap that. Their offensive line is not something I'm necessarily going to write home about. I think that's one area where they kind of not necessarily they struggle. I don't know. It's nice to have numbers on this, but it's not star-studded. Like Deion Dawkins is
He's
okay.
a Pro Bowler. He's a Pro Bowler.
Okay. So
Roger Saffold has had several good years in this league. I mean,
Uh-huh.
he's not the player he once used to be, but
Mm-hmm.
Mitch Morse is really good.
He is good. Yeah, Mitch Morse is good. Ryan
But then
Bates,
the right side of their line, I think is probably not. I couldn't tell you anything about Ryan Bates.
And then it seems like Spencer Brown is going to be out. And it's David Questenberry. If you were the Jets, typically you have Q rushing against the left guard center. Do you think that they kind of change up their scheme a little bit this game and let him rush against Ryan Bates and Spencer Brown, or does JFM and Rankins, who are typically on that side, just handle that? And
Did you say, if I heard you correctly, did you say they put Lawson on that side?
No. I'm saying on the right side or the defense's left side, you typically have JFM and you have Rankins over there, where Q typically plays the right side of the D line or the left side of the offensive line, either at 1 tech or 3 tech on that side. So do you think they might change up this game, or do you think, okay, Q is a better player, he could win against Roger Saffold and Mitch Morse, where maybe Rankins couldn't? Like, do you think they try to go strength for strength, or they expose Q to their weakness on the offensive line on the right side?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it makes sense to always try to expose a weakness, but they might think that Quinnen Williams is good enough that he can win. I honestly don't know what they'll do. I'm trying to think, is this something that they do when they feel like there is a significant weakness to one side of the line? Do they play them more on one side? I don't know the answer to that. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Is this something they've done in the past? Because I can't think of instances.
Yeah, I can't think of any examples of them doing that. So I think they just go like strength against strength. At the end of the day, I think Quinnen Williams, no matter how good or not good Saffold or Mitch Morse is, Q is legitimately playing like the best or the second best defensive tackle in the league right now. So he should be able to beat these guys at least to a respectable rate. But I don't think it's I don't think it's a great offensive line where you have to worry about them like road grading us necessarily. I think we can hold up pretty well. I think our D line beats their offensive line relatively handily. Now, the receivers, the receivers are pretty good. Stephon Diggs is obviously a top 5 receiver, right? I think Gabe Davis has emerged as at least a solid number 2 receiver. Past that, I'm not blown away. Like I don't think Isaiah McKenzie or Khalil Shakir.
McKenzie is not a good receiver, man. This dude drops a lot of balls. Mm-hmm. Not a good route runner. I mean, he's fast with the ball in his hands. He's mostly an end-around guy for most of his career.
Yeah.
No, Jamison Crowder does hurt the Bills' offense.
Yeah. So I think you're looking at a decent offensive line, in my opinion, maybe slightly above average, but decent. You're looking at it's a solid receiver core because of Diggs and Gabe Davis, and Sauce is going to get tested this game versus Diggs, because Diggs is very.
This is the matchup. This is the matchup that this and Jefferson. You've been highlighting this.
Yeah.
Ever since
he's going to prove a lot to me. He's going to prove a lot to me. And listen, if they run Diggs on a lot of Diggs, no pun intended, or like comebacks or outs, maybe outs he would win, or just vertical routes in general. I think he won't be as successful against Sauce. But if you start running him again, short ends and some slants versus Sauce, because he opens his hips up, I think he can get beat up a little bit. because that's why he struggled against Amari Cooper, because he opens up a little bit early. But past that, I don't think it's a matchup where I'm going to say, oh, I'm super, super concerned about this matchup, because the Jets do legitimately have one of the best trios of corners in the entire NFL. But still, I would say Diggs as a receiver is better than any of the corners we have right now. With it being said, in the future, is Sauce better than Diggs? Probably, but Diggs wins that matchup as of right now. But we'll see. Tight ends, Dawson Knox is solid, but I don't think he's any Tony Gonzalez or anything like that. I think it's the fact he plays in this offense.
He's definitely not Tony Gonzalez.
No, and then past that, Quentin Morris, Tommy Sweeney. I think Knox is a decent starter. Do you have any other opinions of Knox, or how do you kind of view him as a player?
Definitely more like a receiving tight end than a blocking tight end, but I think he's pretty solid. They did give him a contract recently, so he's kind of lived up to the hype. It's interesting. I think he must have crossed paths with Elijah Moore during their time at Ole Miss. But yeah, it's interesting how many good pass catching options have come out of that place over the years. But yeah, he's solid, but I wouldn't say you would never really design a game plan around him that you're really nervous about him.
Mm-hmm. Now, and running backs, I'm not necessarily concerned with them running the ball, and they don't really run the ball, the Bills, but I can tell you I am worried about Naheem Hines versus Quan Alexander, CJ Mosley, or Quincy in coverage.
He had a big touchdown against us last year when we played the Colts. That dude, he's got straight gas, man.
Everybody on their team had touchdowns versus us.
Yes. That was an interesting game.
I am concerned about the pass game to the running backs. Now, should be overly concerned about their running game in general. Not necessarily just one for one, but do the Jets go, a lot of nickel and dime to try to combat the Bills, who typically go a little bit light and pass the ball a lot, and then they can take advantage of you in the ground game. Maybe, but I'm more concerned about the running backs because of the threat out of the backfield.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not too concerned with them running the ball. Like when I was hearing, the Bills might, kick the tires on Kareem Hunt or Alvin Kamara, I was thinking like, okay, like this might help them get over the hump to win the Super Bowl. But I still don't feel like they have like a real legit, guy to hand the ball off to that you're really scared of. But I mean, Singletary's at least pretty solid in the passing game, and Hines I think is really good in that area. So, this Bills offense runs through their pass game, and part of the reason it does is because even when the routes aren't open, Allen can make things happen with his legs. So, I would expect the Bills to pass the ball, probably at least 65% of their offensive plays, I would say probably be passing,
Yeah, and a lot of their run game is their pass game at times too, with like screens and all of that stuff. And Josh Allen is, if not the best quarterback in the NFL, the second best quarterback in the NFL. So how do you think the Jets combat him? Do you think they go light? Do you think they blitz him? Because while he's great, he is still prone to throw up an interception or two. Or
I think he's very good against the blitz, though. I think the numbers say he's very good against the blitz.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to blitz him a lot too, because let's say you run a blitz off the edge and then he evades it and then gets out to the side.
Yeah. Is he one of those? And I should have said this. I think he is. When you hear about Josh Allen, he's one of those quarterbacks that you want to contain with the DNs, contain with Jordan Jenkins, with Jermaine Johnson and Carl Lawson or JFM, whoever it's going to be, step up in the pocket to the pressure and hope that he can just nickel and dime you. Are the Jets going to run a lot of, 4-man fronts, just send those guys soft zone coverage and make him nickel and dime you? Because again, like you said, if he does stiff arm the shit out of Michael Carter or Joyner or whoever blitzes and he rolls out and he has all that space, he's either going to go for 30, 40 yards or he's going to throw a 70-yard, missile to Diggs. So I think you're probably right in terms of just, at least in my opinion, contain him, make him nickel and dime you, because he is still that quarterback who wants to make a big play, because he's obviously very, very capable.
Yeah, if you make him nickel and dime you, I mean, every now and then, like there's many reasons why Allen's really good, but if we were to try to compare him and say, he's the smartest quarterback in the league, right? Like that's like he's improved a lot, so much from the mental aspect of the games, but there are some other quarterbacks that really excel over him in that department. So when you make someone nickel and dime you, eventually, they might turn that into a mistake. So it's just more bites at that apple of them potentially making that mistake. So yeah, make them nickel and dime you. To your point, I wouldn't really be so scared about Diggs beating me deep, beating Sauce deep or whatever, but shit, it can happen. Oh man, I had something as people should go and watch. Well, actually, don't watch it, but for the Jags actually had a good game plan against the Bills last year. It really frustrated Allen. They ran a ton of exotic stunts on the D line, and a lot of them got home. So
Well,
sometimes,
hopefully they attack Bates and Questenberry. With Rankins and JFM, they should be able to take advantage of that a little bit.
yeah, I think the Jets have been pretty decent on stunts this year. Somebody says Blitz sauce. I wouldn't do that. You trusting Sauce to bring Josh Allen down? I don't know about that.
No, he's got like 40, 50 pounds on him.
Yeah.
Now their defensive front is very good, very very deep, like very very deep with Greg Rousseau, Boogie Basham, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Von Miller, who nobody mentioned what his comments were, but he's talking about the Jets and nobody put what his comments were, so I would like to hear them. But then you have AJ Epinesa, Jordan Phillips, even Shaq Lawson. So their defensive line is extremely deep and very very solid. It's definitely a top 10 unit in my opinion. So it's a concern versus a Jets offensive line featuring Brown, who's been struggling, and Laken Tomlinson, who's good for a really shitty game more often than not. And
Trey White's definitely playing, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
I know we're talking about the front seven right now, but
yeah.
Okay, because he missed a good part of the season.
And then past that, again, Von Miller might miss. Apparently, he had an ankle injury that popped up on the injury report that wasn't there, and he sat out today. I think he sits out Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Wednesdays for just veteran rest day, and they usually, I'm not sure they actually practice on Thursday, but apparently the ankle injury was something that popped up, so maybe he doesn't play. I know Matt Milano was on the injury report, didn't practice today, so maybe you
really
Von
good player
and Matt Milano out. And then you have Tremaine Edmonds, who's a freak of nature. I think he's solid. I don't think he's an elite linebacker, but I do think he's solid because of how much of a freak he is. But Matt Milano and Edmonds missing, or Von Miller and Matt Milano missing, would be huge for the Jets, obviously.
Yeah, well, Milano's their best linebacker. I don't care what draft status says. He is better than Edmonds. I'm not saying they're the same position or whatever. And Von Miller, obviously, there's no other player like him on the defense. Even though they have, like you said, lots of depth on that front seven. So if those two did miss, that would be big. Obviously, there's no Micah Hyde. He's out for the season. He's a wizard back there at safety. But you said Poyer, too, also might not go. So if that's the case, if there's no Poyer,
I'm pretty sure Poyer's like injury, like it popped up today or yesterday, was like week to week, like not even day to day. Like I'm pretty sure like he's definitely out.
Okay. Well, not that I want a player to be injured, but that's in terms of the Jets' prospects of potentially pulling out a win. That's helpful. So Poyer, that's your best safety is out by far. Like, I mean, like the Poyer's really good. He is really good. So is Micah Hyde. So missing those two guys, I mean, and they've been two staples ever since McDermott got there 5 or so years ago. I mean, like they've been
probably the
staples,
best safety duo in the league.
Yeah, I mean, we were like, so people talked about Adams and
May.
Yeah, Marcus May as being like that top safety duo for a long time, but it didn't really work out for a variety of reasons. But I think these guys are definitely better and definitely like both of them more versatile in certain ways. But if there's no Von Miller, you're losing your best piece, on the defensive line, your best linebacker. If you're saying Milano can't go, so the Jets might be catching a huge break here. But this Bills defense is still good, man. They're still good.
Yeah. I would say if Milano is out, and you have Poyer and Hyde obviously out, it's another game where you want to attack the middle of the field. Maybe Conklin gets another 60, 70 yards and a couple of touchdowns, and Kyle actually does have to buy me a Conklin jersey. We'll see. But you're talking about you're talking about DeMar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson, not Jaquan Johnson, I guess. Nothing to write home about. Obviously, I would say that's obviously a pretty bad group. If Poyer can't go, which I think he's week to week. And then past that, you got Trey White, who is coming off a very long injury, right? So how does he perform in his first game back? Probably not up to his peak level. And then past that, Tyron Johnson and Dane Jackson.
Tyron Johnson's a good player, man. He's a good player. He is very good in run support as a nickelback. They walk him up and play him in the box a lot. Very solid there.
Yeah. So in terms of attacking this defense, Kyle, do we think middle of the field, which is a struggle because Zach Wilson's been struggling really everywhere, but middle of the field with his reads, But this is a team that is lives and dies in nickel. So do the Jets just consistently run the ball and try to ground it out? To me, you run the ball a lot, you grind it out versus them. You don't get in third and second longs, unleashing Von Miller if he does play. Ground control, keep Josh Allen off the field. When Josh Allen is on the field, you run contain with your defensive linemen. Stay disciplined to your rush angles. Don't try to make a play, but stay disciplined to your rush angles so he can't step up or out of the pocket. Make him nickel and dime you, playing a lot of quarters, cover three, keeping everything underneath, and hope that you get a sack or two, force him into a turnover by frustrating him. That kind of be my generic game plan for this game.
Yeah, I do like that. Obviously want to keep Josh Allen off the field. One consistent way to do that is don't turn the ball over and keep a consistent running game. So I like that. I'm also thinking off the top of my head a little bit. Obviously can't do this a lot. Like think about Sam Darnold's third start, or was it his second start? When we went to Cleveland during a primetime game, and I think it was a Thursday night football game, and they rolled him out. They rolled him out so many times that game to the point where it was just so predictable. I would like to see more rollouts from Zach in this game, designed rollouts. And the reason why I say that is these Bills got some monster guys with really long arms, like Greg Rousseau. He is so long and tall.
Deflections at the line, yeah.
A lot of pass deflections, and Zach's kind of struggled a little bit in that area. So getting him outside, it's a little bit clearer, and he doesn't have to worry about some of that stuff. So, and it worked pretty well last week. Zach, it wasn't a designed rollout, I don't think, right? The Garrett Wilson's big reception early in the game, it wasn't designed rollout, right? I mean, Zach just kind of took it that way, right?
I forget off the top of my head, to be completely honest.
I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but I don't want to
say either way.
So obviously the Corey Davis catch in Green Bay was a designed rollout. So we know that Zach can be good in that area, so I do want to see a little bit more of that too. Yeah. Anyway, so
no, it was not a design rollout. I'm watching.
Okay.
Yeah, I just watched it. Special teams, sure, I guess. Tyler Bass, solid. The Jets win on special teams typically, unless Brandon Mann feels like shanking 22-yard punt. So, unless you have anything else to add, I don't really know anything about their. I'm not really the biggest guy in special teams. I know Bass is pretty solid, right?
Well, they were supposed to have a really good punter until that whole legal situation happened.
Yes.
Reed Ferguson, their center, he's brothers on the Dolphins, and he's really good friends with Chris Kruger, fellow podcasting buddy. He was actually living with Chris Kruger for a little bit before he knew he was going to make the team for sure. I think Bass is solid. Sam Martin, I'm not sure him about what he's about as a punter.
Did you see that they have Duke Johnson on the practice squad? What if they bring up Duke Johnson?
Oh shit, we're fucked if they bring him up. They should bring him up just against us because he was.
Oh my god, Xavier Rhodes on the practice squad too.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? You're talking about what is he, like a 10-year vet who's been to Pro Bowl on several occasions.
Yeah. So score prediction, Kyle. Score prediction. We'll get to the chat for we'll literally lightning around the chat really quickly, and then we'll hop off.
I'll say the Jets get 16 points and the Bills get 30 points. Bills win by 2 touchdowns.
16. How do we get? So that would be a touchdown and 3 field goals.
Yeah.
I will say Bills 31, Jets 20.
31-20. Okay.
Yep. 4 touchdowns, a field goal. Jets get 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. Okay. So we'll pull off the screen. We'll get to the chat really, really quickly. We'll lightning around it.
Stop sharing.
Normally the D-line helps the corners. Are Sauce, Reed, and Carter changing that narrative? I honestly think it's like a game-to-game thing. There are some games where I notice was the Packers game covered up some of the corners blunders. For sure, it's the Packers game actually, where the D-line definitely created pressure to not allow the corners to get exposed. And then there's been other games where it's been vice versa. I think they're both good enough where it kind of fluctuates depending on the matchup. Didn't Bryce Hall lock down Diggs under Greg Williams? I know he didn't lock up Gabe Davis last year. I don't remember Diggs specifically. I don't think so. I don't think a lot of people lock up Diggs.
I think we remember that.
Yeah, I have to be in Cleveland this weekend. Any Jet? No, I don't know any bars there. If anybody does, reach out. I don't know how you're gonna reach out to Chazzer, but do it. Cleveland, the armpit of America. Zerline needs to make all his field goals. That goes without saying. To beat the Bills, you got to get every point you possibly can. Let's just not kick field goals. Every time we get into that green zone, let's score a fucking touchdown. That's about all we can do. Make Josh Allen pass. Don't allow him to run at all. Completely agree. I'm more worried about the running back the Bills just got rather than Allen. Oh, yeah. Naheem Hines versus any of our linebackers is a mismatch. He's an absolute stud. Lawson, 1 sack, two sacks. Huff, 1 sack. Okay. 2 DPIs incoming.
We're going to see, like, Bryce Huff. I mean, like,
Yeah.
Deion Dawkins is pretty solid as a left tackle. Lawson's going to be going against him all game. So, you know, if he can get consistent pressure, like, that would obviously be great, but I wouldn't expect a ton of pressure.
Yeah.
But, like, Bryce Huff, he can, like, we're going to see if those numbers add up. Like, you know, if he can get a couple big time sacks, big time pressures on Allen and actually, like, close the deal, because sometimes you can get to him, but can you bring him down? Can you bring him down? That's tough.
And there was plenty of times last week where the Jets like nearly got to Mac Jones. He stepped up and scrambled for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards. So that was frustrating. We talked about the Jets, you know, kind of grinding it out versus them running the ball versus the Bills defense who goes light. Solzy says, fuck it. Just let Zach go out there and air it out completely, throw them off guard. Sure.
There is a part of me that wants to see him air it out more. Like, don't get me, I loved seeing Breece Hall run, and the Jets have like a pretty good running game, and I love seeing good defense, and I love winning football. But there is a part of me that, I mean, you can't be stupid about it and, like, you know, take what the defense gives you, and obviously running sets up the pass. But there is a part of me that does want to see, you know, Zach have some games where he has to throw the ball a lot so we can kind of see more from him, because we want to get that evaluation. But obviously it's not good for his confidence and development if he's throwing in obvious passing situations and he's throwing interceptions because he's trying to make something happen where it's not there. Anyway.
Joe, for the final comment of the day, minus my comment, Jets 35-28. Mike takes over at half, 3 TDs. How? How does he?
Dude, remember how bad Mike White was against the Bills last year?
Can you imagine him coming in? Because, like, at that point, you think it'd be like Zach would maybe be like 10 points or 6 points like that at the half, and then Mike White comes in and absolutely dominates and puts up like 25 points on the board or 24, whatever it is. That's crazy. Brian Newell, hey man, help me up with your dealer. Okay. Okay. Zach, I would say Zach. Kyle, last comments. We'll be back. Oh, well, my next film review will be out Friday afternoon. Again, it's a little bit late, so it'll be out tomorrow afternoon or late Friday night, something like that. I'm recording it when I wake up immediately in the morning. Past that, Kyle, any comments?
I would just say thank you so much for everybody, especially the people that gave super chats. And join the website. Get the month for free. Dive into some of the film reviews and other good stuff on there.
Hawk owes me an hour of watching Zach Wilson's recaps
at least an hour.
Games, but
at least.
In response to White's 3 TDs, I want what he's smoking. Got you. And then somebody else said it's medical or something like that. Okay. Nonetheless, the weed is for medical purposes. Okay. We're getting off. I appreciate all you guys. I will see somebody at the game. J1, if I'm there, I'm not 100% sure. I think I will be. I'll see you back on the film review, and I will see you at the latest next week with Kyle Thursday at